A, the Communitech Data Hub, with a presentation from Justin McFadden. Welcome, Justin.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I am very excited to be here today after nearly 2 years of discussion with Ian and the team at Communitech to bring forth this report to Council tonight, which, if approved by City of Waterloo Council, will bring a proven and leading model of innovation and job creation to the heart of Uptown Waterloo. No doubt adding a steady stream of companies and jobs to an already vibrant and growing core area. The Communitech Data Hub in Uptown Waterloo will position Waterloo and Waterloo Region firmly as a leader in an emerging technology space, and would set the stage as other companies and organizations assemble nearby for Uptown to be branded as the Data District. What we're proposing today is a $680,000 investment over 3 years from the Economic Development Reserve to initiate this program, with funding front-loaded to enable Communitech time to ramp and bring on additional funding in the future. So with that, I think I'll turn it over to Ian to walk through some of the details of the Data Hub.
Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. So I'm thrilled to be here. As was mentioned, we've been working on this for a couple of years, and I'm thrilled to be here to talk about a big idea and establishing a very important facility in Uptown Waterloo. So when we think about data and the opportunity that it presents, what we're really focused on is basically transitioning as a world from people-driven and generated data to machine-driven data. And so data is becoming ubiquitous. Data is moving from being very much about a linear to an exponential. And if we think of it this way, 90% of the world's data will have been created in the last 2 years. So when we talk about things like the Internet of Things and all those smart devices, the Fitbit you wear, the car you drive, the cell phone you have, the Google searches you make, those are all sources of data. And data is actually the new resource. In fact, Tom Jenkins calls it the new oil. It's the new resource that's got enormous economic potential. Now, as we think about this community, this city, this region, this country, the opportunities are we're going to be drowned in data, or we're going to find a way of transferring this data into new, innovative business models, creating companies and jobs. And there's no better place to be doing this than in Waterloo. We've got all the pieces in the puzzle. We've got fine academic institutions with the right kinds of graduates and research. We've got the right kinds of companies. We've got small, medium, and large. They're all focused on taking advantage of this opportunity. And of course, we've got the strong academic anchors to build out data-driven companies. This strategy is linked to the broader Data District strategy of Waterloo. And not only will it link all of the other components that have been developed and built over the last number of years, but it also will help link through relationships across Ontario into the Toronto-Waterloo Region corridor. And this is the Data Hub. And so when we talk about, well, what is it? It's more than space. It's about infrastructure. It's about infrastructure for collaboration, for partnerships. It's about a digital marketplace that allows people to access and share data. And it acts as a springboard for new smart products and companies. It's also project funding that will allow for seed funding to de-risk some of the investments that companies make. And then finally, it will be programming. It will be access to the data and data science, to our corporate innovation program, and to the tried and true programs that support small, medium, and large companies through Communitech. And at the end of the day, it's not just a building. It's a strategy. It's a strategy about having another strong economic anchor in this community. When we think about impact, I mean, the exciting thing about where we're at right now in our history, Communitech has been around 20 years next year. And so we've got a track record of learning how things work and what works and what doesn't. It was 8 years ago that we came up with a big idea to focus on another emerging industry at the time, which was digital media and mobile. And with some seed funding from the city, we launched the Communitech Hub. And now with the data and Internet of Things, this is, we believe, is the next emerging opportunity for the region. We've had some preliminary conversations with lots of partners, and they're all very, very keen to be part of a data strategy in Waterloo. So we're here this evening to ask you to join us as a founding partner in this strategy, to lay the foundation for a major economic driver for the city and for the region. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Klugman. Do we have questions for the delegation from Council? Councillor Durrell, please.
Thank you, Mayor Jaworski. Thank you for coming here today. I guess great presentation. Talk to me a little bit about how many jobs are going to be in that space, and also the success that I find so interesting, and it's in the report, but about downtown Kitchener and what's happened around the tannery in downtown Kitchener, and so what the opportunities are for uptown.
Yeah, so it's you know the kind of impact that we will see is far greater than 14 companies and 125 people working out of the facility. We anticipate there will be hundreds and hundreds of jobs tied to hundreds of companies and millions of dollars of investment. Because what we've seen with the experience in downtown Kitchener is that it is a welcome mat, it is a gathering spot, and that companies who are looking for a place to go when they're starting or growing their company is a natural place to go. When they come out of the facility or when they're working with us, there's a tendency when they're young not to be too far from the center core. And we fully expect that the same thing is going to happen, that we will see infrastructure build up around the hub and really start to build out the broader data district.
Excellent. Thank you. Further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. We have a few other delegates wishing to speak on this topic. First up is Rob Theodosu of ABURB and Settlement Co. Welcome, Rob. Thank you for coming out tonight.
Hello, Mayor, Council. For most of you that probably know me, we occupy several businesses on King Street, and catching wind of this and the opportunity of Communitech coming to the old police station, I think that is something that is going to be a direct impact, and I don't think we understand all the things that are happening around us on King Street right now, and something like this today would be a great injection for businesses. And following Councillor Durrell's report a couple weeks ago on parking, where we did a big survey on parking lots being empty, and we thought that we needed more parking lots. I don't think we have the congestion that we should have in this downtown, uptown Waterloo area. I've lived here my entire life, since the day I was born, went to school here, university here, biked through all the places, started multiple businesses, and council should be embracing this and trying to grow this even to further. There's a lot of buildings on King Street that are empty that could be used and create jobs, and nothing gets me more excited than foot traffic for businesses. And if we're going to build around this LRT, something like this is a great marriage for the LRT. So not only does this building provide foot traffic, I'm also thinking on the broader sense of that alley that kind of adjacent to this. And I've always spent the weekend already reading about the CIB zoning there to add some projection signs in that alley and clean up that alley to add something that is nowhere in the region of some kind of vibrancy in that alley where we could clean up and add some tables and lights and festivals and something really cool and attractable to someone visiting the area would really hang out there. So I've already done some reading up in there, and I'm hoping that City Council and spending most of my days in Kitchener now, the walk-in, I'm still amazed to see how many people are walking in downtown Kitchener. And for us to get away from those four wheels in uptown Waterloo, we need to create even more congestion and jobs in that area. So, it would be great if City Council, embraces this move from a business point of view and, a community member. I see very many pros than cons for the next 3 years to use that money. So,
Excellent. Thank you very much, Rob, and thanks for what you do for Uptown. Questions for the delegate? Seeing none, thank you very much for coming out tonight.
you're welcome.
Next up is Glenn Stocco and George Georgiades, Lexington Park Real Estate Capital, Inc. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Glenn Stocco. I'm the Director of Development with Lexington Park Real Estate Capital, an asset management firm with lands in the Uptown core and throughout the region. I'm joined by George Georgiades, principal with our firm, and this evening we're here to show our support for staff's recommendation to fund the Communitech Data Hub. I'd like to start with a short quote. The City of Waterloo has a vibrant business culture. It's a place where innovation and strategic partnerships are leveraged to grow and support our diverse economic sectors. This statement is found on the city's website as a description of our business community, and I think it's especially relevant for the discussion we're having this evening about the Communitech Data Hub. We firmly believe that the Data Hub is an initiative deserving of the city's funding for a whole host of reasons. Many have talked about how the hub will benefit existing uptown businesses, attract new businesses, revitalize an historic building, support use of the LRT, and likely put Waterloo on the map as a center for big data solutions. But when we look at the investment Waterloo would be making in the Data Hub, we look to how it will produce an enduring and sustainable benefit for the city as a whole. We see the Data Hub's core benefit to the city as its ability to be a catalyst for knowledge-based jobs. Communitech has proven itself as a propagator of one of Canada's best tech ecosystems, a place where people work, live, and play, creating an unparalleled engine for economic growth. When we think of the Data Hub, we can expect a similar self-sustaining ecosystem, one that will entice top talent to stay in Waterloo. Each company that starts in the Data Hub has the potential to generate multiple knowledge-based jobs. Additionally, companies will come from outside of the city, attracted by the opportunity to be proximate to the Data Hub and its seed companies. They will create their own multiple jobs. Then there are the companies who want to be near other like-minded companies who will create yet additional jobs. And on the ecosystem will continue to grow, helping to retain talented job seekers in our community. At the crux of the issue are these knowledge-based jobs that the Data Hub and its ecosystem will create. We believe that these jobs are extremely important to our city as a whole. And we're not alone. In public policy circles, it's believed that for every one high-tech job, another 5 additional jobs are ultimately created outside the high-tech sector, both in skilled and non-skilled occupations. This multiplying effect has been discussed often by the economist Enrico Moretti of UC Berkeley. For example, Moretti notes that Apple directly employs 13,000 in Cupertino, California, but has spurred 70,000 indirect jobs in the region. In North America, we know that cities that thrive are those with a focus on knowledge-based jobs. This is because both skilled occupations and non-skilled ones are supported by knowledge-based jobs. Innovation centers, like the Data Hub will create, have a multiplying effect on the economy as a whole that is much higher than manufacturing or service sectors. Examples abound throughout Canada and the US, showing the divergence in economic growth of cities with a focus on knowledge-based sectors. Communitech has helped to support the creation of countless knowledge-based jobs in Kitchener. We all know the examples: Google, D2L, Deloitte, NetSuite, Thalmic Labs, and the countless startups from the Communitech Hub. The positive spin-off from these jobs are all of the jobs created within the community. This is what we see for the City of Waterloo if the data hub locates in our core. So the types of jobs that the hub will create are extremely important for Waterloo as a whole. But why does the hub have to be in the uptown? To begin, the data hub has the opportunity to inhabit and revitalize an historic building, something that knowledge-based workers value over dated office parks. Further, and perhaps more importantly, knowledge-based workers, and consequently the companies who employ them, want to be in urban centers. Being in the uptown core offers companies the ability to spur innovation among their employees. Large populations of knowledge-based workers enables the exchange of knowledge, ideas, and information. Workers can venture out into our lively uptown core, meet with other colleagues and peers, collaborate, and collide ideas. As an ancillary benefit, and as Rob mentioned, there's of course the positive economic impact to the uptown businesses, and having these employees in the uptown spending their dollars sooner is surely to be welcomed given the economic impact from the LRT construction. So I return to the quote that I started with. Our city is a place where innovation and strategic partnerships are leveraged to grow and support our diverse economic sectors. The hub will not be a short-term economic bump. It's an intelligent, long-run investment that will generate lasting returns by being the catalyst for knowledge-based jobs, having a significant and lasting positive impact to our city as a whole. We therefore strongly support Council's approval of staff's recommendation to fund the Communitech Data Hub. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Glenn. Do I have questions of the delegate? Seeing none, thank you very much for coming out. Very much appreciated. Next up, Mark Christensen, Uptown Vision Committee. And Mark, you'll have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor Jaworski and members of council. My name is Mark Christensen, and I'm the Vice Chair of the City of Waterloo Uptown Vision Committee. I'd like to take a few minutes with council this evening to confirm our committee's position on potential city investment of Economic Development Reserve Fund dollars in this important development in the uptown. At our most recent committee meeting this past Friday, we passed the following recommendation. The Uptown Vision Committee supports the allocation of the Economic Development Reserve Fund for the investment in the Communitech Data Hub proposed in the Uptown core. The Uptown Vision Committee believes that this investment will provide stimulus for future job growth in the Uptown and is consistent with Vision 2025. To arrive at this recommendation, our committee had some good, solid, lively discussion. And we agreed unanimously that this development is most certainly a good news story for the Uptown, and further, that this investment would be a wise and strategic investment in the future of not only our Uptown, but in our city as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mark at this time? Councillor Durrell.
Thanks for coming in, Mark. I just wanted to point out that we have another member of the committee here. Rami is here, yes, and of course Ryan sits the committee as well, so I just wanted to point that out. Thanks, Mark. Great. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, and thanks for your committee's consideration and advice on this part. And I'd like to point out that also the City of Waterloo Economic Development Committee similarly offered a letter of endorsement as well. Thank you. Next up I have here Ginger Whitney. Now, is Ginger speaking tonight? Or? And if not, I think that is all our delegates for tonight. And so now I'll open this up for council for questions, debate, and that. Councillor Durrell.
I'll move the motion.
Excellent, and I think Councillor Whaley was seconding it. Questions, comments, please.
I'll make a comment if everybody else is good. Yeah? Mayor, you laughed at me when I walked into the office this morning because I was in such a good mood. And the reason why I'm in such a good mood today is because we're making Uptown a better place by voting this through. And that makes me so happy. I loved some of the things that were said today, so many great comments. We also have more comments that are in our packages from other people that are supporting this. It's just such a wise move, and I love that Ian Klugman said it's a welcome mat to Uptown, and I think that just really says so much about that building that's been empty for the last 3 or 4 years since the police have moved out. And now it's going to get a brand new life, and hopefully will kickstart a whole new economy. It's an exciting time for Uptown with Shopify living just down the street, and I can't think of a better place for us to make an investment in an economic development investment in our core. So I hope everyone will be supporting it tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. Further comments? Councillor Freeman.
Through you, Mayor Jaworski, there's a lot of time that we get asked to support economic development ideas, but this is one where we're not just supporting it, we're partnering. And I just really feel like Communitech's going to do a lot of heavy lifting, and it's just a great opportunity for us. And I wanted to thank staff. I know how hard you've worked to encourage Communitech to choose Waterloo, and in particular Uptown, as a destination. And I'm pretty excited that we were able to find a space, and that you're going to join us.
Councillor Henry.
The model that Communitech has pioneered in our region and is being studied more than just around the country, but around the world, really has been the goose that laid the golden egg. The success that we will measure from the decision we take tonight will not be in the activity that happens within the building, which will be incredible. It will be all of the activity that happens around it in creating the next great world-leading companies in this area that will call Waterloo and Waterloo Region home. And so I look forward not just to the success of the hub that will emanate from the wide range of partners that are supporting this initiative now and into the future, but from all of the virtuous circle results that are going to happen from that next wave that's going to happen around this place. So I thank everybody that's been involved in bringing this to today, and certainly the work has only begun in getting us to that great future that we've all talked about.
Excellent. Thank you. Councillor Burke, please.
I was halfway around the world last week in Taipei, Taiwan, and one of the places I visited was Garage Plus, which is an innovation center and has several people there who are connected to the University of Waterloo, interestingly enough, and draw much of what they do from the work of Communitech. So I'd just like to say welcome home.
Thank you. No further comments. I'd like to say, from a vibrant community is built on live, work, and play, and since the loss of Seagram's, Labatt's, Bauer Industries, Brick Brewing, police station, like all in our Uptown core, we really need to refill our Uptown core with work. And I actually think this is going to be one of the most important decisions that we take as a council this term, in terms of helping build urban employment and help us to have a vibrant Uptown Waterloo. Certainly I think, we go, well, I guess I should leave the rest for last as to see how the vote goes. So with that, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? That's all of us. Thank you. And thank you very much to the Communitech team, the board of directors who have oversight of this. Certainly city staff have been working on this for 2-ish years. It's something that was brought to my attention early on in the term, and the one partner who hasn't been mentioned yet tonight, the Lazaridis family, for their building and the opportunity to build something special in Uptown Waterloo now. So thank you all very much, and with that we'll move to the next agenda item, but thank you. Next up is the Cemetery Bylaw Amendment Request Review, prepared by Bryce and Eckert Pastrick. I think Eckert's here tonight to do a short presentation. Welcome, Eckert.
Thank you. Before I get started tonight, Donna Huff, Sales and Customer Service Coordinator, will be joining me tonight and stepping into Bryce's shoes with some context on the cemetery. Okay. Mayor Jaworski, members of council, on Monday, May 27th, a delegation on behalf of Ms. Naila Javed appeared before City of Waterloo Council and requested that the cemetery services bylaw
be amended to accommodate the installation of upright memorial markers within the existing Section H Muslim area at Parkview Cemetery. The current bylaw regulates that flat, lawn-level memorial markers are to be installed within the designated Section H Muslim area. Now, in response, Cemetery Services initiated a review of its current cemetery bylaw as it relates to the provision of memorial markers within the designated Muslim area. I am here this evening to outline the review findings and the resulting recommendations being brought forward tonight for Council's consideration. As part of the review, I would like to provide some context on how Cemetery Services addresses the local community's burial needs in general. Cemetery Services regularly works with community cultural and religious groups to better understand interment and memorialization needs. Parkview accommodates several community groups within designated areas at Parkview Cemetery, including an area for Roman Catholic, Temple Shalom Jewish, and Muslim community, as well as a designated area for veterans, just to name a few. Each of these designated areas have been designed in cooperation and at the request of the groups they service, and supporting cemetery bylaws have been established to reflect the group's interment and memorialization preferences. Now, the city has a long-standing relationship that extends 35 years, working collaboratively with the Waterloo Mosque to provide cemetery plots and associated cemetery service to a diverse Muslim community. Over those years, Cemetery Services has collaborated with the Sunni, Shia, Turkish, and Afghan community to design designated Muslim areas at Parkview Cemetery to meet their specific cemetery needs. The map in front of you illustrates the location of the dedicated Muslim areas within the various defined sections at Parkview Cemetery that have been established since 1981. The amendment being requested is specific to the designated Section H Muslim area that is along University Avenue in the top left corner of the map. Staff has undertaken a review of the bylaw specific to the Muslim area in Section H. This review included discussion with the local mosque leadership and neighboring municipal cemeteries. The review confirmed that the city's cemetery bylaws that reflect the predominant use of flat, lawn-level memorial markers is consistent with other municipalities and with the desires of the Muslim community by large. These next couple of slides illustrate the exclusive use of flat, lawn-level memorial markers within the Muslim areas at Parkview Cemetery. These areas have been designed in cooperation and at the request of the various Muslim groups they service and are supported by the current cemetery bylaws. The top right picture is of the Muslim area in Section H along University Avenue. The Waterloo Mosque selected this area for their community members in 2001 and fully endorses the current cemetery bylaw that reflects their preferred custom of marking burial plots with flat, lawn-level memorial markers. Now, as an outcome of the review findings, Cemetery Services is recommending that the current cemetery bylaws specific to the existing Section H Muslim area not be amended and continue to honor the more modest practice of marking burial lots with flat, lawn-level markers. City staff did reach out to Ms. Javed, and founding director of the Muslim Social Services of KW, to discuss and explore potential solutions. The city has also reached out to the Waterloo Mosque leadership, who also participated in those discussions. Now, those discussions were helpful in gaining a better understanding of the expanding cultural and religious diversity that is evolving within the local Muslim community and driving the need for burial plots with upright memorial markers in a dedicated Muslim area. Moving forward, Cemetery Services will work closely with the local Muslim leaders and mosques through organizations such as Interfaith Grand River and Muslim Social Services of KW to establish burial needs for the broader Muslim community. Within the Cemetery Services bylaw, the city provides a number of opportunities to remember and celebrate the lives of loved ones. This includes memorial trees and benches. These available options have been discussed with Ms. Javed for her consideration. Staff is also proposing to develop and install signage in the Section H Muslim area to communicate to visitors the custom of not walking on Muslim graves. Now, moving forward, Cemetery Services is proposing to explore the potential of establishing 2 new designated Muslim areas with burial plots that could include the use of upright memorial markers. The first potential area involves an undeveloped area within Section H, highlighted in light green in the aerial photograph, situated immediately adjacent to the existing Muslim area. Here's another view of the undeveloped area that Cemetery Service is proposing could accommodate upright memorial markers. Another initiative already underway involves the development of a new Muslim section within the cemetery expansion lands at Parkview. The new cemetery expansion lands were designed to include a new Muslim section, highlighted in green on the map and illustrated in the image, that has a total of 212 burial lots, of which about 35 could potentially accommodate upright memorial markers. City staff is currently working to advance bylaws for the new cemetery expansion lands at Parkview that addresses the broader community's burial needs, including those specific to the Muslim community. Any cemetery bylaws that are necessary to define the new burial opportunities identified in this report will be integrated and brought forward as part of the comprehensive Cemetery Services bylaw update. Council will have an opportunity to review and endorse the new cemetery bylaws before being submitted to the Bereavement Authority of Ontario for final approval. Cemetery Services staff are targeting completion of the new cemetery bylaws to align with the 2017 opening of the new expansion lands. The 4 recommendations for Council to consider are outlined in this final slide, and that ends the formal portion of this presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pastrick. Do we have questions for staff? Seeing none, thank you very much. We have a few delegates here tonight. First up is Naila Javed.
Good evening. My name is Naila Javed, and I'm presenting you regarding tonight's agenda on items on Muslim Cemetery Bylaw, about which you have received a recommendation to approve the status quo. As you consider this issue, I wish for you to be well informed about what the real concern is and why it is unfair to make a decision based on the approach of the board of the Waterloo Mosque. It is clear from the report that those who prepare the report are interested in presenting the convenient one-sided picture, a viewpoint of an unrepresentative body of Waterloo Mosque as an overall opinion over 15,000 Muslims living in Waterloo, and this is an unfair approach. Since my petition submitted to the city was not included as an attachment, and only Waterloo Mosque Board President's letter is all you have, I emailed it to the clerk, and I hope you all have copies. I would like to read out the petition for your benefit. Appeal to change the Muslim Cemetery Bylaw in the City of Waterloo. The current City of Waterloo Cemetery Bylaw stipulates that Muslim section of the graveyard will only have flat markers flushed with the ground. No upright markers are permitted, which is a problem for the following reasons. Number 1, flushed graves are prone to disappearance as the ground recedes over time, and designated grave numbers disappear. There are situations of several Muslim graves have been identified at this point. It is an issue of respect for the dead and also the connection for the living. Family members are struggling to find where their loved ones are buried. As per Muslim tradition, visiting the graveyard and offering prayers to the dead is a duty. Honoring and remembering the dead on various occasions is part and parcel of our faith. Imagine when a child who has lost a parent at a young age later goes looking for the parent's grave and cannot find one. The trauma this can cause is enormous, and the loss of family history is serious. Number 2, honoring the dead and sanctity of the graves is a very special rite in Islam. The dead are buried simply and speedily, and they are laid to rest in a place that is going to be well taken care of. Graveyards throughout the Muslim world are well kept and maintained. We wish the same for our dead buried in Canada. However, when a grave marker is flat on the ground, the graves are trampled upon. People walk over the graves. This is problematic, as many Muslim names contain prefix and suffix which may contain the name of the prophets: Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, Abraham, etc. May peace be upon them all. The best way to perhaps illustrate this is with the recent example of late Muhammad Ali's Hall of Fame sign, which could not be placed on the ground as it contained the name Muhammad on it. Hence, his Hall of Fame sign is not walked over, it is placed upright on the wall. In the Waterloo Cemetery, many graves have gone unmarked as people desist from putting the names of their loved ones on the ground for fear of disrespect. Most Muslim names are also derivations of God's attributes, hence again considered sacred and not to be walked over. An upright marker would resolve these issues, as there would be no fear of people walking over the stones. Muslims also often invoke the mercy and blessings of God on their gravestones. Again, something not possible on a flat, flushed gravestone. In my mother's case, I have had a thin upright marker made, and I have figured out a place where I can place it. I think it would be wise to contact all those who have called with concerns in the past and offer them the same choice. Number 3, there is considerable diversity among the Muslim community. It is not monolithic, however, bearing a very small section of Muslims with very strict puritanical leanings, grave identification, maintenance and care are very important in Muslim traditions. Muslims do not create monuments of the grave sites, but do mark it in a way that show respect for the dead and uphold their dignity so as to be remembered. Family members honor their dead by visiting the grave sites and offering prayer for their loved ones who have passed on. This is a fundamental right all Canadians have, and so should Muslims in Waterloo. The right of putting an upright marker for which the city can draft specifications needs to be accommodated, as such accommodation is guaranteed under the Charter of Rights and Freedom. Number 4, the Waterloo Mosque may be the representative body that arranges funerals and has been dealing with the City of Waterloo officials for over years. However, the board of the mosque do not represent the over 15,000 Muslims of Waterloo region that come from many different backgrounds. Moreover, the board of the Waterloo is not based upon an open membership, so only a selected few men in control who administer a particular place of ownership of worship cannot be cannot dictate terms to the whole Muslim community. They have no popular support, nor do they consult the community on these affairs before speaking on behalf of them. In Islam, there is no equivalent as the church or the church authority. Hence, the sanction of the Waterloo Board holds no validity for anyone, nor is it incumbent for anyone to follow their lead. They are not religious authorities. They are a sheer, albeit closed, undemocratic group of selected males. The record of board of the directorates and repeat the same representatives all will prove my concern for the closed door policy of the Waterloo Mosque Board. The Imam of the Waterloo Mosque fully agrees with the religious arguments that I have presented to him, and he tells me that he has even conveyed his concerns to the board members who have not acted on his advice. As we move forward to consider and review the city bylaws, let us gather a variety of faiths and community leaders who can voice their opinion on this matter, so due consideration can be given to the needs of all members of the community. I and many others look forward to working with you and making amendments and moving forward towards on the revision of the bylaw. As the city clerk Linda tells me, there has been a concern voiced by many Muslims in the past, but no one has followed through with this action. I am willing to take this on and hope for your full cooperation and understanding. I, along with several other members of the community, met with the city officials and representatives of Waterloo Mosque on June 7th. We came to the meeting in a good faith to find a resolution, not knowing that the resolution was going to be a status quo recommendation in collision with the Waterloo Mosque. Here is what is clear and facts you should know. Number one, as per the city bylaw, there is no prohibition on the part of the city authorities, and all Muslim graves must be flushed with the ground, as was presented by city officials in our meeting, and also is clear from the cemetery bylaws. Various members of the Muslim community, Turks, Afghans, Kosovars, all Muslims, have successfully negotiated with the cemetery to have raised or upright markers. If you visit the section of the graveyard, you will find only some graves have flat markers. Most have nothing, because people do not find it acceptable to put religious writing and names on the ground. The Waterloo Mosque has negotiated the flat graves with the city as they adhere to the more conservative belief of not putting headstones and upright markers. What they have not realized is in this process is that not all Muslims would accept that, and the city of Waterloo should not join in with the handful of officials of the mosque to deny Muslims of various stripes to honor their dead as they wish. Number two, the critical issue of concern for those who have loved ones buried in the designated number 8 lot. The previous lots that are now closed will remain until there is some accommodation made for them. As our elected officials, it is your duty to represent all members of the community and not become part of dictating puritanical Wahhabi religious practices in the very diverse Muslim community. Your emphasis, I hope, will remain on city requirements, not desire of the Waterloo Mosque Board. There was a concern raised at our meeting that the upright markers may be objectionable to others who have signed for flat ones, which is absolutely not the case. If you see a typical Muslim cemetery around the world, there is tremendous diversity in how people choose to mark their graves. Just as you find here in regular Christian sections, it is an individual's choice as to, and as long as the clients abide by the city regulations for upright markers, there should be no issue. Number three.
Oh, Ms. Javed, you have 15 seconds left if you could work towards wrapping up soon.
I'm almost done.
Thank you.
As you know, the time of burial for Muslims is very swift. In a state of mourning, you seek help from anyone who comes forward, especially if you have no family in town. Had the Waterloo Mosque told us that they have a policy of not having markers in this section, we would have opted for another Muslim section in the cemetery. They failed to do so, and so Muslims in town do not know they even have another choice to bury their dead buried somewhere else. All of the suggestions forwarded in this report presented to you by the city staff are for the future. So what happens to my mother, my friends' mothers who is here, and numerous others who cannot find the graves of their loved ones because they cannot put a flushed marker on the ground for reasons I have just stated? I think it is our right to know where our loved ones are buried and keep their memory alive for our children. I request you to take into consideration all points of views and make a just and fair decision, that is not guided by one group's undemocratically arrived at recommendations. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you. Do I have questions for the delegation from council? Seeing none, thank you very much. And I do have a question of staff. In terms of searching for a grave site, I think that's probably a fairly common thing. Do we routinely accommodate that when people come in looking for a past, a loved one?
Yes, they can either go to the office and office staff will show them exactly where the lot is.
We'll come out with them and take them right to it.
If it's required,
Yeah.
or we might say that it's in between this marker and this marker, if there is no exact marker at that specific spot. We also will help people by email if we get a request by email.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure we had that in place. Thank you very
Yes.
much. Next delegation up is Fala Alizi, President, Waterloo Masjid, Muslim Society of Waterloo and Wellington Counties. Welcome.
Mayor Jawinski, Councillor, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. My name is Falah Al-Izzi. I'm the current president of Waterloo Wellington Muslim Society. My journey started in 1983 when I moved from a little town called Guelph. I decided to move in here because I love the city. And I moved from Kitchener to Waterloo. Ever since the mosque started in 1979, I was a student in the University of Guelph. And I was a treasurer of the Muslim Student Association. And I got a call saying that there is a mosque being built in Waterloo. I said, how far from university? They said, it's only a few blocks. I said, good. I'm moving from University of Guelph to University of Waterloo. Fortunately, they did not accept me because of my poor English, which is until now, I believe. Ever since we started at Waterloo Mosque, everything we do is volunteer. From the president to the secretary to the treasurer, to everybody, we do hours and hours and hours of volunteer. One of the things we do many things. We help the refugees, we help the burial, but I just want to focus on the burial 2 minutes, if you allow me, Mr. Mayor. We spent thousands of dollars. We met with the health department. We have to get the health department to approve our place, to have marbles, to have stainless steel. We went to the hospital. The whole masjid, the whole mosque started with the vision of 4 people: a doctor, a car mechanic, a carpenter, and a machinist. 1974 at the bingo hall, most of you were here, the old highway market. This is what we do for Waterloo Mosque. I feel sorry for my sister Jaweed, her loss, and it's one of the things, unfortunate, we all face one day. I buried my own son, 23 years old, best student at the University of Waterloo, #1, at that cemetery in section D with no marker. No headstone, no markers. I buried him with my own, they had a car accident. We have a map at our mosque. Mr. Mayor, you ask if somebody wants to get to know where they are. We have a map. At any time, any Muslim, anywhere, from anywhere in the world, give us the name, we will tell you exactly where it is, when the person was born, when the person died, when the gentleman looks after all this. We have all this information documented. And we do everything for free, $0. Unfortunately, most of our people, some of our people don't work. some of unfortunate, some of them are welfare, some of them unemployed, and some of them don't want marker. I myself have a will, and in my will, it says no marker to be put on my graveyard. That doesn't mean that what my sister was saying, that there is no marker because the Waterloo board or the Waterloo Mosque has lost this section. We dealt with the cemetery in a good faith since 1981. And since 1981 until now, we have two people. One of them is related to me. She called me and she said, why can't I put upright? I said, no, we don't allow upright. The same with the Shia section. The same with the Afghani section. The only one that allow that stone is the Turkish section, which they allow that stone to be put upright. We're not here to discuss or talk about the board and how bad the board and undemocratically elected. We're here to tell the community, to tell you, Mr. Mayor, to tell the councillor what we do at this mosque. We support, and we don't brag about it, we don't talk about it, we don't even want to mention about it. We support 100 hungry family in Waterloo region. We support 100 hungry family in Waterloo, in Kitchener-Waterloo, Cambridge. They come to our mosque. This mosque has been there since 1979. And we went through lots of people who complain about the mosque. You know, I want to do this, I want to do that. And yes, we have only limited number of membership. I personally have worked with lots of people. I have discouraged people, and I have the name of the people, not to go to the welfare to collect money for the burial. So I don't know. I have submitted this letter. I hope you all, councillor, have seen it. We have done it in a good faith. When necessary, we do finance. We do pay for the burial. We do pay for everything. There are 4 brothers. There are. How the process goes is they call us. They said our loved one died. We forward them to the cemetery, to the funeral home. The funeral home bring the body to the mosque. We wash it. We put shroud on it. We put perfume on it. We do everything for free. We don't charge a single penny. We don't even ask the people to put money. We pray on them, and the proceed goes to the cemetery, and we bury them. And like I said, you know, we never had any problem until recently with our sister, which she wanted to put an upright, you know. We left this one, we had 3 sections, as the report says, and as the cemetery said. We, in our faith, and Miss Jaweed, her daughter, on May, she mentioned during the speech, she said, it is our belief that we only put 4 inches from the ground. Unfortunately, here we can't put 4 inches because the lawnmower does not go. We have to put it flat. Some people, yes, they have name Abdullah, they have name Muhammad, they have name Allah, God, you know, Moses, Jesus. We ask the people not to do it, but if people wants to do it, there is nothing we can do. We can't stop people from putting a name. You can't stay, you know, in the love of, my love, in the loving memory of so and so and so. We recommend that everything stay at the status quo, because we have lots of people, after what Mrs. Jaweed went in the newspaper and the TV and everywhere, I got called, our board got called, our people got called, do not change the section, because the section is flat. We don't want to change it. I said it up to the city of Waterloo. Thank you very much. If you have any question, I'll be more than glad to do it. There is only one more comment for Councillor Wally. Last time we talked about the human right. Councillor Wally, at no time, in my lifetime, anybody from Waterloo Mosque abused anybody's human right. To me, that's a 0. There is no if, buts, and maybe. Rest assured that we're not abusing anybody. Thank you.
Thank you, fella. Do we have questions for the delegate at this time? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you
for coming out. And I believe that's it for delegates, and I would like to open up for council for debate or questions of staff or anything. Moved by Councillor Whaley. Do I have a seconder for the motion? A second by Councillor Henry. Questions, comments from anyone? I have some. Councillor Durrell.
Quickly, I appreciate everyone helping our staff understand what needs to be done here, and I think that I'm sure the rest of council would agree with me. We've learned a lot over the last couple of months about the cemetery system and how it works. I'm particularly, I will be supporting this motion, and I appreciate the first delegation's comments, and I think the answer for you is that, I mean, we might not be able to help you, but we can help people in the future. And I hope that that helps you understand that, you know, sometimes it's not the change for you, but it's change for those in the future. And so we'll be looking into this and what that, and we'll be looking into having uprights in the future. And so we appreciate that. We're done with the comments, but so anyway, that's all I have to say.
Excuse me?
I'm sorry, there's, we're at
This
debate now.
cemetery belongs to the city, doesn't belong to the mosque. So the city needs to accommodate all sects of the Muslim community. And this graveyard is not full yet. So we need to fix this one, not in the future.
Thank you. We're at debate now. In my case, I personally had the opportunity to visit the cemetery for a couple of hours, and they took me through the sales process, the contract that's signed, the review of the upright marker, the fact there's no upright markers there, the process of going through what we have there, visited the Section H, visited the other sections, and visited the new sections as well. So I do think I'd like to commend staff for all the work, and Bryce, who's not here unfortunately, for all the work that you've done on this to make sure when we're looking for a solution, we really look for middle ground, and unfortunately in this one, there's just, it's a pretty binary solution on this one, and that's looking towards what we have on our bylaws, what we have in our contracts, and what we have in terms of respecting the wishes of those who have been there before as well. So with that, seeing no further comments, Councillor Burke, go ahead.
I wasn't here for the initial meeting on this, but I want to commend staff for looking into this the best that they can and doing it with the right intentions. I think, as Councillor Durrell says, you know, this is a decision that impacts the future, and I completely understand your frustration with that. But we're not perfect, and the people who were here before us aren't perfect, and sometimes maybe in the past we didn't come from the right background to be able to understand, but today, like, I think our staff worked incredibly hard to find the right answer, and maybe it's not the right one. That's entirely possible. But I won't question their intentions, and I will support this, because I think, in all honesty, right now, this is the best we can do.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. Seeing no further comments or questions, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? That's all of us. Thank you. Very tough decision. We have some of our toughest decisions tonight, apparently. Next up, the functional design of the central promenade through Waterloo Park, prepared by Annalise Sangster.
Good evening, Mayor Jaworski, members of council, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Annalise Sangster, and I'm a landscape architect in engineering services. I'm accompanied tonight by Brad Keeler, a landscape architect with the MBTW Group, the design consultant retained for this project. And also here tonight is Paul McCone, Chair of the Waterloo Park Advisory Committee, and Ecker Pastrick, Director of Environment and Park Services. I will present the project scope and objectives, review the purpose of functional design, and share details of the proposal for the Central Street access modification and pilot project.
Just a second, Annalie. We're just trying to make sure the volume's up enough.
Before I turn the presentation over to Brad Keeler to share the proposed functional level improvements to the Central Promenade. The Central Promenade through Waterloo Park is an existing off-road multi-use trail nearly 1 kilometer in length and routes along the east side of the region's LRT corridor between Herb Street and Caroline Street intersection and Seacrum Drive. This section of trail is a point where many trails existing that connect across the city and region merge into one, offering a convenient connection between the city's 2 universities at the northerly end and Uptown Waterloo at the southerly end. The trail is busy. Nearly 400,000 visitors accessed this trail segment in 2015 for a combination of pedestrian and cycling uses. Improvements to the existing trail have been on the books for many years because the wear and tear on the existing trail, as well as high level of use, have created maintenance challenges and have raised concerns about visitor safety for those who use the trail. With construction of the LRT corridor through Waterloo Park winding down, we believe this is the right time to plan and implement the trail improvements that will consider integration of the LRT infrastructure with the circulation system in Waterloo Park, anticipates an increase in volume of trail users when the LRT becomes operational, and provides visitors with a greater sense of safety and comfort. Earlier this year, the provincial government announced the city's success in obtaining a contribution of $325,000 for improvements to specifically cycling infrastructure along this trail through the Ontario Municipal Cycling Infrastructure Program. Elements this funding will cover include a dedicated cycling trail surface upgrades to a hard surface material, trail lighting, cycling signage, and pavement markings, and bike racks. With this grant, the current funding available for the initial phase of the project is $1.4 million. The remainder of funding will be used to install a twinned multi-use trail, integration of trail intersections at the 3 east-west crossings of the LRT corridor, a tree canopy and other landscaping along the trail, and site furnishings as appropriate through the upcoming phase of construction, which Brad Keeler will detail for you in his presentation. A secondary branch of this project, for which the separate funding is requested, includes modifications to the Central Street access to Waterloo Park and formation of a dedicated portion of the Park Master Plan recommended interior perimeter walkway. Details of this proposal will come later in the presentation. The functional design phase of this project has developed the overall design for the Central Promenade to 10% completion, where 100% completion is a tender-ready plan package for construction. At this level, the existing and planned site information has been analyzed, and input that was received from the various stakeholders and the public was considered in the preparation of a functional plan and high-level design brief that confirms project direction. This functional planning exercise affirms areas along the trail that can accommodate the components of the proposal. You may have noticed the final design report considers limits beyond the trail upgrades. This design exercise was undertaken to confirm opportunity to upgrade abutting activity areas to the Central Promenade in the future, and the resulting design for those areas will not be advanced as part of the initial construction phase of the trail, rather undertaken as a separate project with additional consultation with stakeholders and the public in the future, subject to Park Master Plan implementation priorities and availability of funding. At this time, minimal impacts to the existing farmstead are anticipated. However, the full amount of impact will not be known until a detailed design is completed. The next phase for the project will be detailed design, which will result in a plan package for tender and construction for the Central Promenade. During this phase of the project, stakeholders in the community were invited to attend 2 separate public information centers and to provide feedback through the city's online forum, Engage Waterloo. In addition, staff has offered project updates to committees of council, particularly the Waterloo Park Advisory Committee, Waterloo Advisory Committee on Culture, and the Waterloo Advisory Committee on Active Transportation. Attached to the staff report was correspondence from the Waterloo Park Advisory Committee Chair in support of the project direction. Unfortunately, Ann Crow, Chair of the Waterloo Advisory Committee on Active Transportation, was unable to provide formal correspondence, but we were able to connect with her a few weeks ago on the project status, and she offers the following comment. I am very pleased that the consultants listened to our committee and have preserved the commuting function of the Central Promenade Trail and enhanced the recreational function at the same time. I will now offer details of the proposed modifications and pilot project at the Central Street Park access. For context, let's review the existing site conditions. Please refer to the plan on the screen before you. The dark purple line work represents the LRT corridor through the park. The gray boxes represent parking, so Central Street and tennis club lots, and the green rectangles represent the other tennis club facilities. The existing one-way through road that is currently shared by vehicular and non-vehicular traffic between Albert Street to Seagram Drive along Central Street is shown in gray, with temporary route exiting to Seagram Drive along the existing Trans-Canada Trail, while the route prior to the LRT construction is shown in a dashed line crossing the LRT corridor west and routing northward to Seagram Drive. I would like to point out that the 2009 Park Master Plan identified safety concerns with this section of road through the park. And when I'm saying this section, I mean the Central Street shared road access there. And finally, the existing one-lane connection for shared purposes between Yonge Street and Central Street in the park is also shown in gray on the map on the right side of the image. The modifications to the Central Street access includes modified entry to the park from Central Street directly into the Central Street lot, and maintains pedestrian connection along the street to connect to a future planned pedestrian refuge island along the south side of the Albert Street and Central Street intersection, and offering a direct connection to the proposed multi-use trails in the park. The proposal maintains the existing 4-meter wide road between the Central Street lot and the Waterloo Tennis Club parking lot for tennis club patrons, service vehicles, and emergency services to access the tennis club and existing parking lot. And through detailed design, appropriate signage and traffic calming measures will be finalized for this route, as well as the addition of pull-offs to allow vehicles to yield to oncoming traffic. Installation of a minimum 3-meter wide multi-use trail is also proposed that would parallel the existing Central Street Road. Alignment of this trail will be detailed during the detailed design phase to minimize impact to the existing mature stand of trees on the bottom left of the concept image before you. In the pilot project to close and monitor the lane between Yonge Street and Central Street to vehicular traffic using bollard gates is also proposed. The lane will be accessible for multi-use, non-vehicular purposes and service access. This action supports the goal of the Waterloo Park Master Plan to remove vehicular traffic from the park and begins to implement about 600 meters of the interior perimeter walkway, which is also a recommendation from the Park Master Plan. While the Waterloo Park Master Plan recommends relocating vehicular traffic to the park periphery, this functional level proposal is a transitional plan that will discontinue a significant portion of traffic from routing through the park while providing a separation between the vehicle and non-vehicular traffic in the area between the Central Street lot and the tennis club parking lot, and maintaining vehicular access to the Waterloo Tennis Club parking lot. If an opportunity arises in the future to remove this vehicular access entirely, the existing road bed between the two parking lots may be converted to green space. If Council approves the proposal, this phase of the project will be initiated later this year so that the circulation routes in the area become much safer for visitors to the park. Do you want me to take questions now, or do you want me to pass over to Brad?
We take questions now because I actually have one. Anybody have questions, Annalee, at this time? Just while you're on this slide, what happens to the road that's parallel to Albert Street there? How does traffic work on that?
It would be closed to traffic, so you'd have service vehicles, pedestrians, cyclists, no traffic.
Okay.
That's a pilot project proposed.
Okay, thank you. Oh, Councillor Doe.
So this has been, just so council is aware, there's been some comments from the neighborhood, and I believe there's actually people speaking today at the delegation. So we can, how do you want to do this? Because I think they're going to raise some questions around it that we've been looking at to try to come up with the right solution. And
But we can handle them at that time. Why don't we let Brad, is it Brad who's up next?
Okay.
Yeah, and we'll see the full presentation. Thank you, Annalee. Welcome, Brad.
Your Worship, fellow councillors, ladies and gentlemen, city staff, I've been charged with the task of presenting an executive summary of the functional study for Phase 1 of the Central Promenade through Waterloo Park. The plan, as it stands today, or the promenade as it stands today, functions basically as a transportation-oriented and green corridor that slices through the middle of Waterloo Park. I did not touch that. Anyways, is this on a timer? Okay, I'll have to speed her up. It functions as an expressway and a collector route through the park now, there with both bicyclists and with pedestrians. The uses that are associated with the park as it stands today, that we have the green areas, and basically they are the labels in black that you see on the screen before you. We have the universities to the north, which is really the gateway to the promenade. We have the uptown and commercial district to the south, which is the southern entrance into the promenade. We have ample green spaces surrounding the promenade. We have EB Farmstead. We have the wetland. We have the Park Inn. And we have the Silver Lake, as well as we have the History Walk, as well as the Uptown Walk that are existing to this day. And we also have the intersection of Herb and Caroline, where we know that there are 4 outstanding world-class architectural buildings located there, which forms a very good anchor for the southern end of the promenade. As it could stand tomorrow, and with the plan that you see before you, let me go to the arrows.
There you go.
There we go. It's on a timer. The red labels are really the additional spaces that would be created with the construction of Phase 1 and what the new pathways would open up. And those pathways, and we have segregated the bicycle path away from the pedestrian path. There'd be 2 separate paths. But you can see how we now have, with the red and with the black labels, how we've almost doubled or tripled the amount of spaces that people can use to gather in, to celebrate different events or programmed activities. We now have connections to the Trans-Canada Trail. Will open up additional east-west connectors from the east side to the west side of the trail. It will be twinning the bridge to accommodate and separate the pedestrians from the cyclists. We will also have gathering spaces of various sizes and shapes to generate different activities that would either be programmed events or could be spaces for art, which will be determined down the road. We have what I call the theoretical walk that's bordering along the Perimeter Institute, and also will be fronting in the Canadian Clay and Glass Gallery. And we have what we call the Uptown Plaza, which will be a new plaza that would welcome people from the Uptown Core or send them on the way into the Uptown Core. So there's a number of different things that are going to be happening. Here we go. A typical section that we're showing here on the slide shows how we plan to separate the bicyclists from the pedestrians. Now, with the cyclists, in the section that you see, we have the light rail transit. If you read the section from left to right, it'll be the light rail trail section. We'll have a landscape buffer. Then we'll have a 4-meter wide cyclist trail with a line down the middle to designate cyclists going northbound and cyclists going southbound. It will be a hard surface cyclist track. We'll then have a landscape buffer in between the two, and that would range, and it varies in size as you go up and down north to south along the promenade. And then we'll have another 4-meter wide pedestrian trail only. That will be hard surface. And then feeding off of the pedestrian trail will be various spaces along the route for gathering, for socializing, for special events, and so on. The pedestrian trail in particular will not only be separated by planting, but in some areas, such as as it flows past the Perimeter Institute, there'll be a separation by grade. So either by planting or by grade, we'll have this separation. And this was done too, because one of the feedbacks that we got from our stakeholder meetings was that safety was a concern. And so by separating them, we minimize the danger of cyclists running into pedestrians. We can have families that can stroll along the pedestrian with their children and not be afraid of oncoming bicycle traffic, or those who like to travel maybe a little bit faster than others. The pedestrian portion too will also be fully accessible. We have analyzed what the grade should be. We know that we can construct the entire trail that 5% slope or less, and both trails will be very well marked and very well signed with wayfinding signage and other amenities along the way to let people know where they are, what events they can see in the park at any particular time. And of course, the plantings that you would see would not only provide, I mean, we're showing shade trees too, because with the climate change that we're experiencing these days, it's good to have more shade rather than less shade. And we do have already have an existing mature tree canopy, and we'll be augmenting that with further tree plantings. The other thing we should probably mention too is that part of our scope also included how we make connections to the park end concession area. And the existing slope now coming down from the parking area and from the park end, and whether you're coming down the slope or you're going up the slope, it's too steep for accessibility. It's in excess of 5%. So we have proposed a little realignment of that trail to accommodate a slope that is less than 5%, so it will be fully accessible, and it will also be hard surface. So the idea was that we would take the promenade is really the spine that people will travel along, but can also get off the trail onto other pathways and get into the park itself, into the other green areas, and and maybe a possibility to visit the heritage buildings that are existing in here. The other connections that are made, of course, we'll have a connection that's made to the heritage trail that's there, and Annalie has already spoken to the connection that will be made to the Central Street and to the tennis club area and the residential areas beyond. I think that's it in a nutshell.
Thank you. Questions for Brad? Councillor Durrell.
Can you talk to me a little bit about how the farm is incorporated into this, and also a little bit about water? I know that was a lot of the feedback that we got from anyone who came out to any of the meetings we held, was they wanted to see more water along the trail, fountains, etc. Can you talk to me a little bit about what that looks like?
Right now, because the phase one construction includes the construction of the trails, of the pathways. Right now, if you were to take and measure from the existing fence line, well, I'll call it the existing fence line, but the fence line that runs right along the tracks, with the landscape buffer, and then with a 4-meter bicycle, and then with a landscape buffer in between, which gives us a little bit of play here and there, and then with a 4-meter pedestrian, that construction phase one takes us right to the fence line of the farm now. So anything that happens beyond that fence line where the farm is now, that will be looked at in the future through more detailed design. Now, in terms of water, same there, that water will be incorporated at some point, or it will be looked at in more detail through future detailed design. But it will,
Not sure if you're the person to talk to about this or not, but we were inspired by Starry Night in Holland, which was this really innovative way to light up a trail. And I know that from the start we've been talking about incorporating that into, come on over, Eckert. We've been talking about incorporating it into this. Can you give me an update on where we're at and what that looks like?
Certainly, through you, Mayor Jaworski, to Councillor Durrell. We're intentionally focusing on the active transportation corridor aspect of this project, because that's what the funding is intended to support. But in order for us to plan that corridor, what we looked at is some potential opportunities that exist along that corridor and how it links to that active transportation corridor.
So within the context of the design, there were a number of areas identified throughout the 900-meter length that could support some elements in the future, like water play, like a washroom facility, and some other basic amenities that the park is in need of. However, one of the major components that we will be integrating into the design of the active transportation corridor is the integration of light. Wonders of Winter is a long-standing partner of ours that hosts the light show every winter. We're actually looking at working with them a little more exclusively and expanding that program so that we can integrate lights into the design. One of the elements that we're looking at is potentially upgrading the existing fence that was installed as part of the LRT project and somehow integrating light as a component of that. Another very exciting aspect is related to the paving surface itself. So we have a grant application in seeking funding to install a section of trail that is in front of the Perimeter Institute. Initially, that's where we're thinking, that has these fluorescent rocks integrated into a clear silicone substance that gets embedded in the surface and can basically illuminates at night, and that would be the source of lighting for this section of the pavement. And again, speak to some of the programmed elements and some of the very exciting stuff that's coming out of the Perimeter Institute. We could look at mimicking some sort of solar system as an example in the pavement surface to speak to what's happening in the general area. So those are the light components that we're integrating. There are others. Again, most of this will be flushed out during the detailed design, but we know that light is going to be a fairly prominent component of the project. We're working with a company out of the Netherlands that is pioneering a lot of this light technology and how it gets integrated to actually guiding people down active transportation corridors, as an example. So those are some of the design elements that when we bring the final detailed design package together and to show council and get final approval, that you'll see some of those elements illustrated.
So, go ahead.
When we first passed the culture plan, like 3 years ago, the one thing that I remember most is we talked about how we wanted Waterloo to be whimsy, and I think that's the perfect word to describe this technology coming out of Holland. That'll be the black hole or the galaxy that people will be able to bike on, so I'm really excited about it. I guess that's about all my questions.
Just Councilor Joe brought up that point, and you mentioned the next set of design. What's the time frame on that?
So time frame for detailed design would be towards the end of the year, early next year. We would like to start construction next year on the main north-south spine.
Okay, good. I just was thinking about I think the Canada 150 second phase grant that we put in, and that timing of that is the end of the year, so we'll know by the end of the year about that, so that's good. Thank you. Further, go ahead, Councilor Doyle.
We should also talk about the fact that the ION construction is still ongoing, and so it does, our start date is also quite dependent on them as well.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no further questions, we'll move on to delegations. Thank you very much, Brett. First up is Sharon Woodley. Welcome, Sharon.
Your Honor, Mayor Jaworski, can we change the order?
Sure.
We'd like Luke to go first, then myself.
That works for me. First up is Luke Anthony Greatrix. Welcome, Luke.
Hi there. Sorry, I didn't have any fancy technology here.
That looks like it works.
So my name is Luke Greatrix, and I'm here to talk mostly about the Central Street access to the small parking lot at the Waterloo Tennis Club. I first got involved with this project early April, or actually late March, talking to local community members, mostly in the MACA Association. And we quickly found out that there was an open a meeting at the rec center on April 7th. And we attended that, and there we had Anna Sangster and Eckhart Pastrick there. Actually, sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm a citizen, father, political ecologist, activist, in multidisciplinary education in political philosophy, economics, ecology, and law. I've also authored courseware for the Environment Urban Planning Law program at UW and was a teaching assistant for several years. I live right here, at the corner of Albert and Central. I've been along the park there for 8 years, and I've been speaking to hundreds, if not thousands, of people about the debacle of this road right here as it currently stands and and the proposed changes to it. Getting back to the April 7th meeting, about 3/4 of the 25 or so attendees there were against the current road and the proposed road project for several reasons. First off, though, I'd like to mention that as a lover of civic virtue, liberal democracy, and integrity, I want to state that I'm quite perturbed about some of the contradictory and false information that's been given by Annalise Sangster and Eckhart Pastrick over the past few months.
I think we have to watch, we're a respectful organization here, and can you please speak to the report?
The report, sorry?
The recommendations that we have, and just stick to the facts.
Well, my recommendation is that this road should be shut down immediately for safety concerns at the very least. But I am concerned about the democratic process here because I was told that this was years in the making and that there was no need to even be talking about it. And all of a sudden, 13 weeks later, we have a vote about this road. So I'm quite perturbed, as I'd like to state. Now, for every argument that they had regarding the recommendation of this road, we had a counter argument, and they kept falling back on the lease agreement. There's no mention of a parking lot or a road to a parking lot in the lease agreement. Anna has cited in an email that the parking lot area is part of the lease, but there's no explicit provision providing for access to that parking lot. There's also other parking lots around here that can be used. This one can be significantly expanded. Tennis court players are already using that parking lot, and there's also parking on the other side of the bubble as well, and there's an entrance to the tennis club there. So some of the legal issues that I'd like to talk about is this 100-year-long lease, which I think is unreasonable and antiquated now and should be updated. They're only paying $1 a year to lease public land for the privilege of being in that prized spot. So at the very least, they should help finance the road if it does go through. I know they have a fairly tight financial situation there, and they're not for-profit, but they have 300 to 400 members a year, most of which are driving fancy cars, and I'm sure they can help fund the road if it is voted in. Regardless of if there was an explicit provision regarding the road and the parking lot, I don't think the lease has any standing. So yeah, I think financially speaking, I don't think the burden of building this road should be placed upon the taxpayer. We have unprecedented debt levels, inflation, desperately low interest rates, lack of meaningful productive employment, a housing bubble, a government debt bubble. The last thing we should be doing is spending thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars so that people can get a few meters closer to their tennis match. There's adequate parking already existing. Just right here, parking tennis club members already park there. And I also think there's enormous safety issues. Even right now, I see people almost getting hit by cars here right around this corner where the road currently goes through. I think that section should be shut down immediately. Now I looked at, took an anecdotal inventory of the tree species in here, and over 80% of them are Manitoba maples and European buckthorn, which are all listed as invasive exotic species. So they could easily be, sorry. Oh. Sorry, most of the trees beside the parking lot, the unpaved parking lot to the east of the tennis courts there, those are mostly invasive exotic species. There's plenty of room for the addition of many other parking spots. And one of the arguments by the tennis club that I've heard is that they are afraid students will take their parking space. And first of all, I live here and I see that parking spot, the parking space all day long. Very few students use it, number one. Number two, there's no reason why the tennis club can't have some exclusive access to some of the parking spots there. I also think there's some logistical problems with this proposal. There's a lot of traffic coming into here to the tennis club, and at peak hours that lot fills up really quickly. There's only 30 spots there, and they start funneling down, either coming back down the one-way road the other way or going through the park, putting more people at danger. So this proposal, I mean, how are people going to turn around? They're going to come up, the parking lot's going to be full, then there's going to be traffic coming down the other way. I think people are still going to use that as a pedestrian throughway. They're going to park there, they're going to walk to the baseball diamonds, the petting zoo, all along that road. So yeah, there's just some logistical concerns about that proposed road there too. And I'd also like to note that there's an LRT stop just a couple hundred meters away from the tennis club, and we should be trying to promote the use of that for getting around. And then from a policy point of view, as Anna has already pointed out, the master plan, specifically identifies getting rid of vehicular traffic in the park, and also in the master plan, which Sharon Woodley will go into more detail about, it recommends directing parking away from that lot and towards the other unpaved lot down to the east of the tennis courts there. One more thing here, we have started a petition. We thought we would get more signatures. We've gotten almost 250 so far over the past few weeks, and we thought we'd get over 1,000. Because we thought we had a lot more time, because that was the information given to us by Eckert and Anna. So at the very least, my recommendation is that the decision should be delayed over this road until more information is gathered, more detailed review can be made, more signatures collected. I also think that the road should be shut down immediately, like I've already said. If only for long-standing safety issues, which have been identified by previous bodies involved in this. And from a democratic view, nearly all the people I've spoken to are against the road as it stands and the proposed changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have questions for the delegation at this time? Councillor Durrell.
All right, thanks, Luke, for coming in. I know we've talked about this a couple of times. My struggle with this is that I'm feeling there's nothing else we can do. This is the best situation for what we have, and so, or at least that's my opinion. So, and I actually haven't heard anything that. I mean, I think the solution that I've started to come to conclusion with is that this is a temporary road until we can move forward with more amenities. Is that, and maybe staff can help me with that too, but we talked about putting the road on another side by the bubble. It got measured out. In fact, I pushed staff really hard on that, and in the end it just wasn't feasible. So one of the arguments that I brought after I met with you and Ms. Woodley was to staff to challenge them to say, is this the best we can do, hands down, like if we're going to do this. So one of the things that the issues for you was that we're spending money on this road, and so I want you to know that we're not spending money on the current road. Not a penny will be spent on it. It's just there waiting until we can get rid of it, essentially. Am I right? Would you like to fill in the blanks there?
Through you, Mayor Jaworski, to Councillor Durrell. The existing road, so let me just step back. This section of roadway, when we went through the master plan back in 2009, was identified through very extensive public consultation as a section of road that had many conflicts, primarily with cars and people. And that's the primary driver for what we're actually putting on the table for council to consider tonight as part of this package. We are not investing any money in upgrading that existing road. The road is there as it is today, servicing access to the tennis club. What we are proposing is a separate, dedicated, isolated, multi-use trail that is removed from that road, that is part of that 2.8 kilometer interior perimeter loop that loops around the entire park. This is a segment of it that is only for pedestrians, no cars. There is no conflict, we've removed the conflict. The beauty of this is that it takes it right up to Albert Street and makes a connection to the upgrades that are happening on Albert and provides a pedestrian island so that you can easily get across Albert. So we're making that connection into the park. So that is where we're spending our money. The parking lot, so the lease associated with the tennis club involves a much larger area than is actually shown here. It involves a good portion of the parking lot right off Central, the gravel lot. It involves the tennis courts, and it involves the paved parking lot that the tennis club constructed using their own funds back in some time ago. So we're, again, not investing any money there. What we have learned, though, is we took a couple of days and we wanted to get a feeling and an understanding of what's happening with the vehicular traffic in this area. And that's one of the reasons we're prompting to deal with the pilot project here. We found that half of the vehicles that enter the park off Central, or probably off Central, Spring, and Yonge, are passing through the park. We were quite shocked at that. They're actually passing through, going past the tennis club and out to Seagram as a shortcut. I can't imagine it being very short or much shorter than the alternative routes, but that's what's happening and that's what we discovered. We also discovered that the trail connection along that parallels the bubble and heads out to Seagram is actually quite actively used. I forget the numbers, but we were quite surprised at the number of people that are using that as a secondary north-south access into the park, probably because the LRT has complicated pedestrian movement in that area. So I've had a look at the petition. I had a look at the wording that was used to describe the context of the petition. We're not doubling the road. There is no two-way traffic. We're having...
Wait, there's going to be two-way traffic. That's part of the plan.
There is...
Sorry, excuse me, I'm going to ask you just to hold on. Right now it's question period for Councillor Durrell. She's asking a question. At this point, it's just questions only.
Apologies.
So please continue.
Yeah, the road is the same as it is today, the same width. It's roughly 4 meters. What we are going to do is place 2 strategically located pull side bays for cars to allow each other to pass if that arises. Again, it's only there to service tennis club patrons, nothing else. People who want to get into the park and access Waterloo Park will come in directly into a parking lot. Part of the master plan specified move the parking out to the periphery of the park. This is as close as we can get to the periphery in this particular location. So that is where people will park. There will be a connection to that pedestrian trail right from that parking lot. Again, this is functional level. We're just showing the relationships of all the components. The detail will describe exactly how that happens. So we've thought about a lot of these elements, and that is why we've put this particular solution. It's not likely the ultimate solution moving forward, into the next 20 years or so, but with the resources and the funds that we have available right now, this eliminates a lot of the conflicts, still allows us to honor our contractual agreement with the Waterloo Tennis Club, and advances the master plan towards its ultimate goal.
So, thank you, Eckert. And I guess the one thing, Luke, I want you to understand is that this isn't the end game. And I think that, like, if you hear anything tonight, it's that this is still a work in progress, that as the tennis club changes, as Seagram Stadium changes, there's a ton of things that are going to be happening in that area with the LRT next door. So as things progress, it gives us opportunity to redesign. At this point, and I think you said it best, we don't want to sink any more money into a road that's not going to be there in the next 10, 15 years, probably less. So this is the best case that we could come up for. I know it's not perfect. I know it's not what you want to hear, but I think, in order for us to move this forward and try to keep cars out of the park and make cut-through traffic, this is what we've come up with.
Yeah, I think cars are still going to use that road to get into the park, regardless if they're playing tennis or not, in my opinion. Like, is there going to be like a gate there to stop them? I mean, like, what? No, but like they're going to drive up to the tennis club parking lot to unload for baseball or picnics or to, use other amenities of the park there. I see them knocking out the barriers into the park and driving their cars right through there all the time. It happens. And pedestrians are still going to use that road.
Oh,
Anyway.
okay, so, Eckert, that's something we can just make note of it. Maybe we put up signs, this is not a drop-off area. If only tennis club members are allowed to go down that road, that signage that we can definitely do.
Further questions for the delegation? Seeing none, thank you very much. And next up will be Sharon Woodley. Hey, do you want to come take the chair?
Mayor Jaworski, members of council, city staff, and members of the public. My name is Sharon Woodley. I live at 144 Albert Street near the park in the Heritage District, also called MACA, McGregor Albert Central Association. Jane Jacobs spoke of citizens who live in a neighborhood as having eyes on the street. In our neighborhood, we also have eyes on the park. We see what goes on there. We go there often. We help take care of the park. We have a loving, caring relationship with our park. First of all, I thought that I worked on this petition with Luke that has been alluded to, and I thought that when we presented it, I asked Councillor Durrell, how do we present it and when do we present it? I didn't realize it would be part of this whole staff report. And so now I find myself responding to both the issue of the two-way road and the whole report. I'm wondering why in the middle of the summer, when many people are away on holiday, this is coming to council now. What's the rush? I oppose the two-way road to the tennis club for several reasons that Luke has mentioned, and also because it's totally unnecessary. When we first started the petition, we didn't know that the pedestrian walkway that is being planned now to go along with the two-way road would be proposed. And so, since in the petition we mentioned the cost of a two-way road, I'm wondering how much is the new pathway going to cost? Eckert can answer that after. Right beside the tennis club on the east side, there's the large parking lot that we've been talking about. It's never full, and it can easily hold a number of cars, and it can be enlarged. There are also about 20 parking spots off Seagram at the back of the bubble, close to the stadium, where I've observed that there's casual parking there. Profs from both universities and students use those parking lots, those parking spaces. I don't know if people know where I'm referring to, at the back of the bubble where you just drive off Seagram. And evidently at another council meeting, Laurier was saying, why don't we have more of an entranceway, or the facility, the stadium. So let's make this more of an entranceway to the tennis club and the rink in the park, etc. So I'm wondering why that can't be utilized. In our culture, we're used to driving up to the front door of everything. The LRT has changed the park for all of us, and for the tennis club, the reality is that they will no longer be able to drive to the front door of their club. This is not a new idea. The 2009 Waterloo Park Master Plan refers to this closure in all maps. All the maps here's the Waterloo Park Master Plan. All the maps in here show the ring road, which we call, as being pedestrian only, and vehicle traffic is no longer there. So I want to read in the final report of the Waterloo Park Master Plan under Waterloo Tennis Club. Opportunities are to be investigated as to strengthen ties to the Waterloo Tennis Club. The integration of the parking lots from Central Street will give the tennis club a higher profile in the park. The Central Street lot could be shared with the Waterloo Tennis Club. The consolidated parking lot eliminates the need for road access into the park from Central Street. So right here in the park plan, it says that the tennis club player, it's recommending that they use that informal parking lot. I hope everyone knows I don't have access to the overhead, so. So now getting to the staff report. I do agree with number 4 on the staff report, if everyone's following, that council approves the pilot project to limit the access along the interior loop on what we call the ring road. And that has been talked about for years, and of course we're expecting that. And so, what do people do though when they get they're cycling and walking on that part of the road, then they get to the end of it? Now we're going to have a new pedestrian pathway that people can go on. There should be no need to take precious green space and chop down trees to make another paved pedestrian path to the south of the road to the tennis club. Certainly this is an irresponsible and waste of use of taxpayers' money and grant money. There is one big, beautiful, very large, mature maple tree close to this proposed pathway, and it would be absolutely criminal if this tree was affected in any way. Every tree, especially large, mature trees, are so important now as our summers get hotter and hotter. Shade is a precious thing. One of the challenges in the future will be to provide enough parkland for the many more people who will be living in the core of the city. It's time to think very carefully about preserving and protecting our green spaces. So I'm just saying that this seems redundant and a waste of money and a waste of park space to have this other pathway constructed when the tennis club players can park elsewhere. Next, I would like to comment on number 3 of the staff report, the approval of the functional design for the improvements to the Central Street access. Well, what's the problem with the entrance at Central? At present, we have a nice road off Albert that narrows with a curve, which is traffic calming, into the parking lot. If you put in a straight road to the parking lot, as in the drawing, it will encourage drivers to speed into that lot. Also, there are several large trees around that entrance, and I hope you're not planning on removing those mature trees from the park. I do want to commend Annalise Sangster for her attempts to include our neighborhood and citizens in general in the preliminary planning of the process for the promenade. This is a very positive step, and we do feel that Annalise is listening to our concerns and ideas. Yes, we were invited to a meeting in March, and there were diagrams and information available. There was even a questionnaire of sorts. Not easy to understand, mind you, but it did happen. And there was a meeting in May. However, is one questionnaire with 200 responses enough research regarding a pathway used by thousands per week? Or is it daily? It's 1,200 people a day. The most used pathway in the region. I'm just saying this is a very, very important pathway. Is there an emergency? The path is there and it's working. There are thousands of people using it. It's very successful just as it is, without any entertainment or play stations along the way. People are happy with simple greenery on the one side and train tracks on the other. I am happy to hear that this will become a hard surface, because I think that will be good for cyclists. And I also like the idea that cyclists and pedestrians will be separated in the future. So now I'm getting to a part of this report that I'm really quite concerned about, and I'm wondering why I don't understand it totally, but it's these developments of the 5 zones as mentioned on page 7 and 8 of this report that you have. I'm not sure that I understand, sorry I'm repeating myself, the ideas behind these zones, but there appears to be a lot of, quote, hard services, mention of many 4 to 6 meter trails, seating, construction of another bridge, a pavilion, and water play and water features, a kind of, tarting up of the park. Is this the time to point out that if you hadn't noticed, we already have 2 large water features in the park? We have Silver Lake and we have a splash pad. Both of these need help and work and maintenance. The splash pad is very popular. Do I need to also point out that Silver Lake needs rehabilitation, and now it is a polluted, ugly mess? Geese are a problem all along the boardwalk, and this needs to be addressed. Paul McCone, in his letter at the end of this report, talks about the spectacular views of Silver Lake. Perhaps he hasn't been there lately, or he only goes in the winter when it's covered in snow. I hope that the 5 zones are not going to be a repeat of what we have off Father David Bauer Drive beside the skateboard facility. Perhaps this part of the park is a lesson in what we don't want on the east side. Cement seating and cement walkways, which may look good to engineers and maybe to the people that live in the new towers, but not child-friendly. This was supposed to be a playground. Why did you put in delicate birches, young willows, exotic spruces that are dying? None of which provide very much shade, and some of which are now dying. Sorry, I'm repeating myself. How much did that playground cost? I forget. 500,000 or more? People want their parks to be soft places. Cement is so much 1970s. One last point. I don't see in the 5 zones, one thing I'm worried about, I don't see any reference to our historical focus area, meaning the area around our 120-year-old schoolhouse, the Eby Farm, and the Abraham Herb plaque. Where is the zone for this area? The history of the whole of the east side of the park is very important to our beginnings as a city, and that includes Silver Lake. And connected to the Heritage District, and in many ways it's an extension of the Heritage District, the historical part of the park. And I'm happy to announce that we now have started a Waterloo Park Historical Society that will appreciate, respect, celebrate, and protect the historic and heritage features of Waterloo Park.
Thank you. Questions for the delegation? I saw Councillor Durrell, or is that a question of staff?
Ms. Woodley asked a lot of questions, so I was hoping I could redirect them to staff. Is that okay?
Yeah, do you have any questions for the delegate at this time?
No, I think Sharon, I think I wrote down every question you had, so if I've missed one, we can try to circle back.
Okay, I'm sorry I didn't have a copy of the report, my report for everyone, but
okay.
I didn't have time.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. Thank you. And for Councillor Durrell, question? Or hold on. Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to say to Mrs. Woodley, you talked about cement being so 1970s. I love that. That was really good. Because I knew you back in the 1970s, and you were such an activist then, and you continue to be a raging granny. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Durrell, questions for staff? Or questions for staff?
Let's just do a line
that's
of...
fine, Sharon. We're done. Thank you.
Yeah, we could just do a line of fire here if that's okay with you. I'm just... Okay, so one of the things that we talked about is it a two-way street or is it a one-way street?
Through you, Mayor Jaworski, to Councillor Durrell, it is, as it is today, it is technically a one-way street that allows traffic to pass both ways.
And we're not touching it?
Correct.
Not a penny's being spent on it?
Other than putting layaway bays so people can pass each other, no.
Okay. Have we looked at enlarging the parking lot to the right, which would be the rectangular gray box by Albert Street for everyone?
We have not looked at enlarging it. Again, our focus with the capital dollars we have available is to address the installation of the trail and reduce or eliminate the safety issue that's been identified.
Will any trees be hurt will any trees be chopped down, to use Ms. Woodley's words, in the making of this path?
Absolutely not.
Not one tree will be touched?
They have been surveyed, they will be avoided. We are aware of the large maple tree. We will not be putting a trail anywhere near it.
Okay, so no trees will be cut down. Okay, so there was some, and the 5 zones, so I'm getting to the 5-zone area, lots of hard surfaces and water play. Now, Ms. Woodley brought up the fact that we already have 2 water feature-ish things in our park, which is one of the reasons why we are putting water features along Essential Promenade. Would you mind sharing with everyone why?
Sure. We recognize that there's likely a need for a new splash pad in Waterloo Park. And again, as part of this exercise, we're just going through some exploratory work that could see some potential water play features be a part of the farmstead. And again, these are just concepts, these are just ideas. We're just trying to figure out the relationship of this trail to the farmstead in that area. But we've explored that.
And the reason why we're doing that is because the splash pad is at the end of its life.
Correct.
And has been at the end of its life for how long?
It's a 21-year-old facility.
Right. And just give us a quick update on Silver Lake because it is making a comeback.
I'm not the expert at this.
But you can tell us that we're
Maybe I
doing
can
something
turn it over
on
to
it.
Ron and he can give us an idea of the timing for that work.
Through you, Mayor Jaworski. Yes, that's correct, Councilor Durrell. There is work underway in engineering right now to start terms of reference for a class environmental assessment to look at options for rehabilitating Silver Lake.
So rehabilitating Silver Lake, so bringing it back to its marvelous glory.
Through you, Mayor, we would certainly hope that that would be part of the mission statement for that project, Councilor.
Okay. So we invested a lot of money on the east side of Waterloo Park. Are any of those trees dying?
On the west side.
Sorry, west side, pardon me.
The redwood trees, yes, we have lost 3, I believe, of the 6. All of the trees that we planted there were very mature trees. There is a warranty on them. They are being replaced. We actually planted the willows, large caliper willows, to basically establish shade as quickly as we possibly could. That's what was the primary reason for our planting as many trees and as large as we did in that area.
So any of the trees that are dying, they're being replaced under warranty?
Correct.
And the rest of the trees are okay and they're going to make it?
Yes.
Okay. The other question I had is, I thought it was interesting that Sharon mentioned that concrete's 1970s because styles come back in, and is the style of this west end of the park, is that sort of the new style of parks?
I mean, style is a very subjective.
Design?
Yes, design. What we do know is the playground has probably been one of the most successful projects I've ever worked on. It is very popular, highly utilized, and has been tremendously successful, in my opinion.
Okay, and the history of the park was not a zoned area. Can you talk about why, and is there anything that we can do to work with the new Historical Society of Waterloo Park?
So the schoolhouse is actually located well outside of the corridor that we were looking at. So the only section that we looked at that leads to that area was the trail that goes up the steep bank that we have some operational issues with. So that's why we included as part of this design project. We want to fix that so we don't have to constantly look at correcting erosion. But there's nothing in this particular concept that speaks to the historical context of that schoolhouse.
So it's not in this project, but it's still on the radar of the city.
Absolutely, as part of the Waterloo Park, as part of the original master plan, the 2009 version, we did actually have, we were looking for opportunities to integrate that schoolhouse into some other programmed area, so it would get a higher profile.
Okay.
But that's long term.
Okay, and if we could get the cars out of Waterloo Park, would we?
That's the goal long term. That's
Totally.
what
we would do
slowly
if we could.
and meticulously working towards.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions of staff? Seeing none, I will call up the next delegation, which is Douglas Woodley. Hold on. Douglas Woodley, welcome.
I've been sitting here a long time.
Mayor Jaworski and Council, my name is Doug Woodley. I live on Albert Street in Waterloo in the Heritage Conservation District. And I have 3 comments about the presentation of the proposal that we've been looking at tonight. The first is about the process of preparing this report. The second is about the absence of details in it. And finally, it's about the parking lot that we've been talking about. First of all, I received this report on Thursday, July 14. That was the first I saw of it. I had attended several meetings and checked the relevant web pages before then, but Thursday was really my first time to see what was actually proposed. On March the 2nd, for example, I went to a meeting run by the MBTW group with about 50 other citizens. We were shown lots of nice pictures of other parks and asked to comment on ideas labeled with such things as licking, curving, balancing, blending, listening, luing. And we were asked to comment on these pictures. We were puzzled and asked what they meant. We didn't understand the answers they gave us, and we wandered around asking one another what it all had to do with the park. We sat down and wrote comments and went away perplexed. I later attended 2 Jane's walks in the park and asked questions to which I received answers clearly intended to reassure me that all would be well, which made me rather less than reassured. After May 3rd, I checked out the Engage website. Perhaps it was my own ineptitude with computers, but once again I was puzzled and unclear about what was being proposed. I thought I left comments to this effect, but looking over the responses, I don't see them. So I decided to be patient and wait for a while, and then, last Thursday, I received this report. So I called Annalise Sangster and asked her a couple of the first questions that came to mind, and she was most obliging. It was a pleasure to talk to her. She'd clearly understood my questions and answered them to the best of her ability. But it's summer, and I've only had a few moments in the past 4 days to think about this. But here's what I've been able to put together. I think that the work of the MBTW group was a waste of money. They presented slick words and pictures, and I felt treated like a child. My questions weren't answered, and my comments seemed to be simply bundled together and used as evidence that I attended the meeting. What did we gain by those meetings? I am grateful to Annalise Sangster for her help, especially since learning that she was the one who applied for and was successful in winning an Ontario grant for $325,000 for the bike trail. But I've only had 4 days. Many of my neighbors are away and I can't talk to them about it, and I feel this report is inadequate and that all my participation and time has been for nothing. Surely the point of consultation with residents is that we know some valuable things. For example, because I've lived beside and walked through Waterloo Park almost daily for the past 48 years, I know the rabbits, the owls, the hawks, the way certain trees and other plants have grown and aged, who uses the park, and how and when, and how the seasons affect all this. I could write a book about this park. But as things stand tonight, I don't think my voice has been heard. Next, I want to speak about the details, or the lack of details, in this report. IPPW 2016/043, which Council is asked to approve tonight, is conspicuously lacking in details. Here's what I mean. What is the plan for the Seagram Drive end of the trail? There's a deep swale there lined now with big rocks. How do we plan on getting around that? What's the plan for providing pedestrian crossings of the LRT line at various places? Will there be two paths, one paved like the Iron Horse Trail and one beside it not paved? It seems that that's the case tonight, but I didn't know that until tonight. Who will negotiate with the region about replacing the ugly chain link fence with something less cage-like? And will the animal cages be moved or not? That doesn't seem to be clear tonight. Or the lights, or the benches, or the bike racks. And what is the timeline for all this? And for closing the ring road? The ring road is a pilot project, and so I would hope there are criteria for evaluating the effect of closing it. But are there criteria? This report doesn't have those details. I could go on. None of these details are included in the report, so am I to understand that if this report is passed by you, Council, tonight, all these details will be left up to staff without any further consultation with people like me? Now, I want to make it clear that I'm not complaining about the work of Annalise Sangster. As I said, she's been most intelligent and helpful, and she's got other duties and projects, and it's apparent that she hasn't had enough time or resources to develop this proposal sufficiently, at least as far as I can see. Finally, with respect to points number 3 and 5, I think that number 3 is okay, insofar as it calls for a parking lot where one exists now. But why make the entrance a straight line? As Sharon has said, currently at the end of Central Street, there's a little curve to the left, and then after a few meters, a curve to the right to get into the parking lot. Isn't that a good idea? It makes cars go more slowly. It's kind of pretty. It works now. It already exists. And as the old saying goes, if it ain't broke, why fix it? Then there's the two-way stretch with pull-offs, which, by the way, we're going to have to spend money to pave those pull-offs. Right? Or are they going to happen for free? Okay? It allows the tennis club members, and exclusively tennis club members, to drive in and out of their 26-car parking lot. This makes the public parking lot both a place to park and a right-of-way for people traveling through. Now think about that. People park there, they get out of their car, they get their picnic basket out, their strollers out, their children out, but there's other people just driving through one way or the other. Is that safe? Is that even legal? And what about the path for pedestrians? Now we have to build a parallel one beside the existing road. And how will it be connected to the existing but closed off part of the ring road? I don't see a plan for that. When will this be built? And how much will it cost? And until it's built, how are we going to keep pedestrians off the old and now private road and impeding the tennis players' cars? So, why not be sensible here and simply follow the Waterloo Park's master plan? It calls for the tennis club members to park their cars in the gravel parking lot like everybody else and enter the club by the gate that's right there. Lots of tennis players do this right now. Why not keep it simple? I'm aware the tennis club has a 99-year lease. I've seen it, and it doesn't stipulate that the city should provide them with exclusive access on parkland to where they've made their own private parking lot. Service vehicles could still have access to this lot, and they could get there by going through a gate installed at the parking lot connection, and it could be opened when necessary. The gate would cost, I'm sure, several $1,000s, but what else would be needed? Nothing. I note that point 5 calls for $156,000 to do what it requires. But what is needed here? Well, there's a gate. And then There's the cooperation of the tennis club members. Well, couldn't we talk to them about this? Of course they don't want to change their accustomed ways, but come on. They're surely reasonable, and the city saves itself an expense of at least $156,000. And that's before you start talking about another pathway. In summary, I suggest tonight, councillors, you defer any decision on this proposal and send it back to Annalise Sangster to take some more time on it. Ask her to list some of the details that I've mentioned. If you don't make the decisions about those details, who does? And it's you who should be making them. But you don't have those details right now. So you're turning it over to staff and saying, yeah, you do it. I don't think that's right. And then let's talk about the tennis club. I know several members. I used to be one myself. They're reasonable people. Some of them are my neighbors and friends. When things have been worked out a little more, Annalise Sangster can bring it back and present it. Let's try for September or October. But tonight, what's the hurry?
Thank you very much, Douglas. Questions for the delegate? I think a lot of your answers will be are in the word functional, that we're approving the functional design tonight, not the detailed design. This is sending the staff away to work on the detailed design, which will eventually come back to council in the time frame of November, sometime. So we will see that it will come back to council for our own decision based on what we're sending them away to do tonight. And some of the other items, you mentioned other things that were sort of outside of scope. So again, the scope here is the central promenade. So some of your questions were about things that are adjacent to it.
As far as the central promenade is concerned, it seems like it's a good idea. It's 400,000 people use it. Let's keep it going.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Questions? Councillor
Yeah,
Durrell?
I guess Mr. Woodley, what I'm concerned about is, and maybe this is a communications issue, is you felt that there should be a lot more details, but this is a very high-level report to say that we, as a council, think that, we want to see a segregated bike lane and a pedestrian lane. That's one of the major elements coming out of this. That we want to pilot getting the cars able to run through into Seagram Drive as a cut through. So there's some specific elements, but on the whole, you're right. There isn't a lot of detail in there. That's not what this is about. So I guess my concern is that that's what you felt should have been in here. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it seems to me that's what you're asked to approve tonight. In principle, at least, all these things. And then who makes those decisions? That's my question.
So does it make you feel better to know that this is a high-level report and the details will come back to us in several more months where we'll start to dig down into those issues?
And will there be a chance for people like myself to have a voice in that?
Absolutely. Annalee, we've got our lists of everybody that's come out to all of our meetings, and we'll continue to keep you posted. I know that I have quarterly meetings with MACA, so it's something that I can bring forward. And so as we dig down deeper, I think you raised a lot of great questions. The fact is, this isn't a detailed report. It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be very high level to say, as a council, do we want to connect the two anchors of Waterloo Park, and from a very high level, what do we want to see it look like? And I think that's what we're voting on tonight. Not I think, that's what we're voting on tonight.
Mm-hmm. Further questions for the delegate?
Does that ease your worries then?
No, I'm fine if Annalise Sangster is going to be working with us on those specific details. That's fine. I'm still concerned about the safety of that section of two-way road into that 26-car parking lot. People are going to walk out of that parking lot and walk up that road.
Mm-hmm.
People are going to be trying to drive both ways on it. Is that
okay, I think...
don't you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why can't the tennis club be negotiated with?
Well, I think that we've worked on that, and we've talked to them, and we're doing our best. At this point, we need to move this project forward so we can get down to the details. And but I don't think that anything's off the table. I think in a perfect world, we would love to have these conversations, and they're going to continue, I'm sure, right?
Further questions for the delegate? Seeing none, thank you. There are no further delegations, but I would take note that we have correspondence from the Waterloo Tennis Club as well in our package.
Your Worship, may I speak?
Where do I see? Oh, Mr. McCone. Yeah, welcome. You will have 5 minutes, Paul.
Your Worship, members of council, my name is Paul McCone. I am the chair of the Waterloo Park Advisory Committee. I had the opportunity this morning to talk on CBC Radio 89.1 about this project and about how enthused I am about it and how enthused the Waterloo Park Advisory Committee is about it. We're looking forward to seeing stuff happen with the Central Promenade, which has been long neglected because we knew the LRT was coming. When I served on the Waterloo Park Master Plan Update Special Project Task Force, we knew the LRT was likely to come through, and we requested that if it came through that there be a stop in the park. We were very pleased when that happened. Because of LRT construction, it's been impossible or not impossible, but unwise to spend taxpayer dollars on maintaining a trail that we knew was going to be torn up and need to be replaced. I think taxpayer dollars are important, but I think citizens are also important, and I think when we start talking about taxpayer dollars as being the only reason to do or not do something, we make a mistake that can affect the quality of life in our city. And I think the Waterloo Park provides a great quality of life for the citizens of Waterloo, not just the people who live next to the park, who feel perhaps that they have a greater interest in the park than those of us who live a few blocks away from the park and perhaps should mind our own business when it comes to it. I walk through the park quite frequently. Whenever I stand on a bridge, I admire the water. I admire the creek. I even admire the water that runs through the gable boxes that are currently at the weir behind the band shell. I know that area of the creek is due for rehabilitation sometime in the future. I also know that the reason that work hasn't been done on Silver Lake is because of problems upstream that have been addressed in order to prevent the silt from washing downstream. I know from work with the Waterloo Park Advisory Committee that that work on Silver Lake is coming. When I stand on the bridge that crosses Laurel Creek and I look out into the water of Silver Lake, I do see a spectacular lake, even though it's silting up right now. I can see that it is spectacular because of the size of it, because of the distance I can see, and I even take some interest in the way that it's renaturalizing itself through silting up and grassing over. If I find it spectacular now and talk about it being spectacular, it's not only because it is spectacular now, but because I know that in the future it will be more spectacular. Now, Ms. Woodley is a former member of the Waterloo Park Advisory Committee, and I know that she knows that this rehabilitation is coming. I would hope that she is also looking to the future and the spectacular views that will be available at Silver Lake. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have questions for the delegate at this time? Thank you for what the Parks Committee does and all the work it's done in maintaining our jewel of the city in that, and for your work in looking into this and offering us advice on the decision we're making tonight. Any further questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no further delegates. Oh, seeing a further delegate, I do. Oh, welcome. If you could come to the microphone and please state your name, and you'll have 5 minutes. And municipality, please.
Right. My name is, hello Mayor, members of council, members of the public. My name is Pat Creighton and I'm president of the Waterloo Tennis Club. Just looking at me, that negates one fact that the first delegate made, that the club is made up of rich people. So what I would like to say is that I have presented a letter to the mayor and the council outlining our situation. As presented, I answered in response to the concerns of the petition. I would just like to say that if I had read that petition and knew nothing about the club, I would have signed it myself. But after reading the petition, I realized it has done the club a great injustice, and it's quarter of the fact is probably true, that yes, we are a tennis club, and that's about it. The rest of it, I think I wouldn't go on. I have only 5 minutes. But I would like to say that this tennis club has never been a private tennis club. It has members, yes, but it serves the public. We are the only tennis club that offers members, non-members of this region, not just the city, but this region, access to its tennis lessons and its facilities, its winter facilities, of which we are very short of in this city and area. There are only two facilities. One is a private club, and one is the Waterloo Tennis Club. So we are serving this community, and this club has served the community for over 100 years, because it has never been a private club. And the beginnings of this club was an endeavor from citizens where there was lack of facilities, and they, with the blessing of the Waterloo Park Board at that time, gave permission, and this is how the club is located in its prime position. Regarding the endangering of the concern about the pedestrians and cyclists, I think the plan has addressed those. And all we're concerned about here is that 550 piece of road that we need, not about just for parking. I think the emphasis has been on the members wanting to park or to get right to their front door. Nobody has spoken about the emergency services or thought about the fact that the patrons of this club, and it's not just the members of the club, we serve university students, we serve members of the public. We have ages running from 5 till 95. We do have, and that's not an exaggeration. So how are these people to be assured of emergency vehicles coming through in time when in need? The club has to function in terms of upkeep. We have to have waste management. We have to have facilities maintained. These are all large vehicles. And the access that the delegates have mentioned is actually parking there. It takes some time to get up to the club entrance. We're talking, you also have to consider that we are a year-round facility, so we operate at winter time. So the time that it will take to get from the parking lot in case of emergency is going to be that much more in order to get through the snow. As I said, the second delegate, spoke about respecting the history of the park, and yet that park has been there longer than any of these residents, and it's very much a history, part of the history of the city of Waterloo. So, as I said, it has been made out to be a private club, and to keep that road open is just a service, the convenience of private club, or rather members who are probably middle class and come for idle pleasure, but it is far from it. I will stop here because I know members of council has received my letter. But I just wanted to know, to give these points. I'm not very articulate here because I'm very nervous, but I think that how the facts are presented to council by members of the delegate shows a lack of understanding on the nature and function of the Waterloo Tennis Club. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And no, you didn't look nervous. You did well. Questions for the delegate? Seeing none, thank you very much for attending and speaking as well. Okay, so seeing no further delegates at this time, I'll open this out to council. For Councillor Durrell.
I'm going to move the motion as written.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Henry. Discussion at all? Anything? I think what we've done here is in terms of the functional design. Now, the functional design, as it comes out, it looks very good, and I'll definitely be supporting it. Further discussion?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of elements to it that I'm really excited about. I think this is one of our most used trails in Waterloo region, and it's important that we put investment in. I think the chair of the Waterloo Park, Paul, made a great point that we've been waiting to do this, and I have had many an email from people saying, when are you going to finally get this trail done? And it was, we didn't want to invest in it until we knew what was going on with the LRT. We're there now. We know what's happening with the LRT. That it's ready to go. It's almost complete, actually, and so it makes a lot of sense at this point to start to move this design forward. I want the citizens of the McGregor and anywhere else, and for that matter, that are interested in this, that this is a functional design, and as we go dig deeper into the detailed design, that you will be listened to and you will be heard, and your points are important to us, and we want everyone to feel comfortable in our park because it is our jewel.
Excellent. Thank you. Seeing no further comments, all those in favor? None opposed. Thank you. And thank you very much for staff on getting us done. We have Uptown Communitech tonight, and now we have the Central Promenade well on its way, so thank you. Okay, next up is our formal and informal public meetings, and there's A, B, C, and D. We're going to actually reverse C and D when we get to them. And first up is this is an informal public meeting to consider zone change application Z-16-10, 430 the Wilmot Line, blocks 61 to 63, draft plan 30T 97024. There will be no decisions made tonight. Council and the public are seeing this application for the first time. Council is looking for feedback from interested parties with respect to the application. Tonight's comments will be taken into consideration in developing a staff position on this application. A staff report will be considered by council during a formal public meeting at a future meeting. All property owners within 120 meters of the subject lands and anyone who signs the registry will receive notice of the formal public meeting. Anybody who wants further notice of this application, including the formal public meeting and passage of any bylaw, should sign the appropriate registry located on the desk at the rear of council chambers. The planner will now provide a brief overview of the application. Welcome, Natalie.
Good evening, Mayor Jaworski, members of council, members of the public, and staff. This is an informal public meeting for zone change application Z-16-10. It was an application submitted by Activa Holdings, Inc. for property municipally known as 430 the Wilmot Line. The subject lands are located within the Vista Hills development. As you're all familiar with this development, of course, it's on the west side of the city, and adjacent to the Wilmot Line and north of Columbia Street, outlined here in red. As mentioned, the application was submitted by Activa Holdings. The actual lands subject to the application are identified here in gray. It is located within their second phase of development, which is shown here with a black line. The blue areas show previous phases that have been registered, and then there's additional lands to the south that are future phases of development. The official plan designates the property low-density residential, and it is zoned neighborhood residential - townhouse linear, or NR-TL, within zoning bylaw 1418. The applicant is requesting to rezone the subject lands from neighborhood residential townhouse linear
2 neighborhood residential townhouse linear with site-specific provisions, specifically to increase the maximum percentage of garage permitted to represent the front width of the dwelling from 58% to 59.3%. This would apply to a total of 28 lots, so that's the application for 28 townhouse lots, and that's shown here in yellow. These lots range in frontage the frontage of these lots range between 8.23 meters to 12.3 meters, or about 27 feet to 40 feet. And the request is ultimately to permit a garage door of 4.8 meters wide or 16 feet wide. This is an image submitted by the applicant of the proposed townhouse layout. It shows both 3 and 4-unit townhouses, townhouse blocks along both Mayapple Street and Woodlily Street, which are both streets to be constructed and developed through the future phases, this second phase of development. And the townhouse units are street fronting freehold townhouse units. This image, again submitted by the applicant, shows the proposed townhouse elevation. This is a 4-unit townhouse block, and it shows the 4.8 meter wide or 16 foot wide garage doors that's being proposed through this application, and hence the need for the site-specific amendment to increase the amount of garage that it takes up that front portion of the facade to 59.83% rather than 58%. And this image here is the rendering of the proposed townhouse units, again showing a 4-block townhouse unit. So information submitted by the applicant for this application included a planning justification report, site lotting plan, building elevations and floor plans, as well as on-street parking plan to show the location of the driveways. And the next steps for this application will involve staff will provide a review and full evaluation of all the information submitted. We'll review comments received by both agencies and the public, and we'll eventually bring this back for a formal public meeting with staff recommendations and a staff report. And I'm available if you have any questions.
Thank you. Does any councilor have questions for staff? Please remember this is an informal public meeting. Only questions of clarifications may be asked at this point. Councilor Burke.
I'm interested in the mathematics of it, and for some reason I can't get my calculator to work on my laptop here. I do it myself. But 28-foot wide buildings, right? And increasing the coverage of the garage from 58% of the building to 59.3, which really adds up to very few inches. Am I right?
So it's a 27-foot lot, so 8.23 meters. And what they're looking for is a door that's 16 feet wide, so it works out to 59.3% of the facade of the building.
We're talking about a very small amount of bigger garage door, right?
Correct.
Okay, that's all I wanted. I just wanted to make sure my math was right.
Thank you. So out of interest, any idea why it's 58%, not 60? Anybody know? Looking over at Joel, see if anybody has the magic answer of wherever came to be 58.
In response to your question, Mayor Jaworski, it was based on the math that was provided with respect to these subdivisions originally. To the west of the forest, there's a general requirement around 50 or 55%, so that the garages do not dominate the streetscape. But the intention with the Vista Hills subdivision was to ensure that at least a garage and a half was constructed. So based on the percentages of the lot dimensions, the number of 58% was derived through the math and the calculations. In this case, they're going to lot these particular townhouse lots slightly smaller than the requirement to make a double car garage. So they're looking for just a minor amount of relief to adjust.
Thank you. No further questions. I'll ask any registered delegations to come forward, and we have Jason Mafera of the Activa Management Corporation. Welcome, Jason.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My presentation is going to look similar to Natalie's, so I'll do my best to not reiterate what she had already said. Mainly here to answer any questions you guys have, but I'll quickly go through my presentation. So as mentioned, it's in the Vista Hills subdivision. That's an Activa project. We're moving forward with the next phase of construction, working through the registration process right now with staff, and the hope is by the fall to have this street in particular, as well as some others, serviced and ready for building permit availability. There's a total of 28 lots that are subject to this zoning amendment application, and again, they are proposed to be a freehold townhouse product. So again, yeah, what we're asking for is an increase in an amendment to one regulation in the NRTL zone, basically an increase of 1.3%, or as asked, it's about 4 inches in garage door width for a 27-foot wide lot. The main purpose of that, why that number came out again, is currently with that size lot, you could build a 15.6 something foot wide door. Those don't exist. We'd like to build a 16-foot door. That's a true double car garage door, and that would make it work on a 27-foot wide product. We've done some updated renderings. We've been tweaking the elevations as we've gone, so this one might look a little bit better than Natalie's. I'm not sure. Depends on your opinion. But again, the idea is to take the focus off the garage door. One of the comments from staff was to bring the front entrance forward. We've also tried to propose a second floor amenity space, so there'd be some sort of second floor balcony projected forward towards the street. Some different building materials to, again, take the attention off the garage door if possible. Oops, sorry. My apologies. So the main reason for it is obviously to provide a true double car garage. That's a lot of the feedback we've gotten, a lot of the market intel that we've got has been a request for a true double car garage. We recognize that not everyone will use it for 2 cars, but the need is there for storage and in some cases 2 cars if they so choose. It also provides a bit of a more affordable housing product from a single detached. Effectively, with these 27-foot wide products, they have about the same square footage as a 34-foot single detached lot. Obviously, you lose the side yards, which helps bring down the cost of the lot and effectively makes it more affordable. We also think it's a bit of a unique product for the neighborhood. There's not any other double car garage townhouse products that we're aware of in Vista Hills, so we're excited to bring sort of a bit of a different product to the community. It also works better, the narrower lots work better for the grading in the area. Vista Hills is has a lot of different topographies, and Mayapple Street alone, the grades change significantly from one end to the other. So by doing narrower lots, it avoids the stepping and challenges of grading with wider products. Again, this is just another view. The elevations that Natalie already showed. And again, we're basically proposing two lot widths, a 27-foot interior wide product, and then the end units and corner lots would vary, but the unit product itself would be 27'6", I believe. Just an example in another community, this is in Carriage Crossing in Waterloo, one of Activa's projects. Admittedly, this is not the same zoning, but the intent of this photo is just to show that in this case, it's about a 62-foot wide percentage. Garage takes about 62% of the front facade. In our opinion, it's appropriate and it still shows good urban design and a quality streetscape that is not necessarily just focused on the garage. So another example in Waterloo. Basically, in conclusion, as Natalie's mentioned as well, it just increases the housing forms a little bit, creates a bit of a more affordable product for the area. We feel that it will maintain the intent of the NR zone and the streetscape, and that it's a minor modification to the zoning. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you. Questions for the delegate? Oh, Councillor Henry.
Not a question, but a comment, and not a comment on the garage door width, because obviously I'm not allowed to do that at this stage. But you did mention urban design, so let me just add my support to you and responding to staff regarding making sure the front entrance is highly prominent in these, and you've made some articulations around second floor amenity space. Certainly those kinds of front porch-like living is a very attractive piece from my point of view on what makes good urban form and good urban design. So I appreciate that that's a conversation you're having. So can't comment on the garage door itself, but let me comment on that.
Any further questions, comments? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
If there are no more, is there anyone else present here tonight who wishes to speak to this application? Seeing none. If there are any more questions from council? Seeing none. If there are no more delegations, this informal public meeting is now concluded. Staff will review the issues and provide further reporting to council at a later date. Next up, formal public meeting. This is a formal public meeting to consider zone change application Z-15-03 258 Sunview Inc. for 250 to 266 Sunview Street. Any persons who want further information of this application, including the passage of any bylaw, should sign the appropriate register in the binder located at on the desk at the rear of the council chambers. If there's more than one binder, as there is tonight, please make sure you're signing the appropriate one. Will the clerk please advise council of the method used to give notice of this meeting and the dates notice was given?
Notice was advertised in the Waterloo Chronicle on June 30th, 2016, and mailed on June 28th, 2016, to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject property, to public agencies, to all persons who signed in or spoke at the informal public meeting held on May 11th, 2015, and to all persons who requested further notice.
Thank you. The planner will now provide a brief overview of the application. Welcome, Rita.
Thank you, Mayor Jaworski, members of council, ladies and gentlemen. This is a formal public meeting for 250 to 266 Sunview Street, zoning bylaw amendment Z-1503. The subject site is located within the Northdale neighborhood on the east side of Sunview Street, north of University Avenue West and south of Hickory Street West. The site is a consolidation of 9 different properties, and it is located within a short walking distance of the universities and within 800 meters of 2 planned LRT stations. In terms of context, the subject site is surrounded by a 4-story apartment building to the south, over here, single detached dwellings to the east along here, and Ivy Towns, a 4-story apartment building that's currently under construction along here. There are also single detached dwellings to the north of the site and to the west of the site along here and here. And finally, 255 Sunview Street, a 12-story apartment building, is located to the west of the site. In terms of the official plan, the subject site is located within Special Policy Area 45, which applies to the Northdale neighborhood. 266 Sunview Street is designated low-density residential, while the remainder of the lots are designated mixed-use, medium, high-density residential, and apartment buildings and auxiliary uses are permitted on the site. The maximum density permitted on the site is 250 beds per hectares within the low-density portion, and 600 beds per hectares within the mixed-use, medium, high-density portion of the site. In terms of height, the maximum height permitted is 6 stories within the low-density portion of the site and 12 stories within the mixed-use, medium, high-density portion of the site. In terms of zoning bylaw 1108, 266 Sunview Street is zoned to permit a 6-story, the zoning of 266 Sunview Street is holding Northdale Mixed Use 6, and the remainder of the lots are zoned holding Northdale Mixed Use 12. The applicant originally requested the following site-specific provisions during their submission: to remove the holding provision, to consider the lots as one for planning purposes, because the dedication of the pathway will create 2 separate lots, to reduce the commercial parking rate to 3 spaces per 100 square meters, down from the required 4 spaces per 100 square meters. Also to permit 2 vehicular entrances, whereas the bylaw only permits 1. To share density between the NMU 6 and NMU 12 portions of the site. To reduce the internal tower setback. To increase the maximum horizontal tower dimensions. And to utilize density bonusing to permit 65 additional bedrooms. After consulting with city staff, the applicant changed their site-specific request to the following: to remove the holding provision, to consider the lots as one for planning purposes, to reduce the commercial parking rate to 3 spaces per 100 square meters, to permit 2 vehicular entrances, whereas the bylaw would permit 1, to share the densities between the NMU 6 and 12 portions of the site, and to permit 7 additional bedrooms in exchange for the construction and conveyance of the active transportation pathway. The dedication of the 3-meter wide active transportation pathway would create a loss of 7 bedrooms on the site, and the applicant has requested that the 7 lost bedrooms be permitted by way of a bonusing agreement. The sole purpose of the bonusing agreement is to facilitate the construction and dedication of the pathway. This is a conceptual site plan and rendering of the proposed buildings. The proposal includes 3 mixed-use buildings. Building A will be located north of the pathway over here, and it will be 6 stories tall. Buildings B and C will be located south of the pathway and will be 12 stories tall with a 6-story podium. The proposed development will consist of 298 units and 340 bedrooms, including 365 square meters of commercial space at grade and 96 parking spaces. As you can see, the parking spaces are going to be located to the rear of the buildings along here and underneath the cantilevered portions of the building along here and here. The proposed active transportation pathway will bisect the site between building A and B and will provide a pedestrian connection between Sunview Street and Albert Street to the east. This is a conceptual rendering of the proposed active transportation pathway. As you can see, the pathway will be activated by proposed commercial, at-grade commercial space within building A and B. This is the pathway down in here. The pathway on this site will connect to the existing pathway to the east that was obtained through the approval of the Ivy Towns development and will create a mid-block pedestrian connection between Sunview Street and Albert Street to the east. In conclusion, the requested zoning bylaw amendment, as recommended by staff, will ensure that the dedication of an active transportation pathway will connect Albert Street and Sunview Street. The proposed development includes both commercial and residential uses at grade and will assist in activating Sunview Street and in particular the proposed active transportation pathway. The proposed development is also within, again, 800 meters of 2 planned LRT stations. Therefore, staff recommend that Council approve zoning bylaw amendment Z1503 for 250 to 266 Sunview Street in accordance with Section 7 of the staff report. That concludes my presentation. If there are any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much. Does council have any questions of staff? Seeing none, thank you very much. I'll now ask any registered delegations to come forward. First up is Kristen Barrisdale, GSP Group. Welcome, Kristen.
Good evening, Mayor Jaworski and members of council. My name is Kristen Barrisdale with GSP Group. We are the agents that are acting on behalf of Preca Developments with the proposed, with respect to the proposed development. We've had a chance to review the staff report as well as discuss with staff, and we are supportive of the recommendations. Just wanted to let you know too that we have submitted a site plan application for the property, which was considered by the site plan review committee, and we're just in the process right now of reviewing some of the finer details as related to site plan approval in principle. As Rita touched on, there is a bonusing agreement that is required to allow for the additional 7 bedrooms, which we have reviewed on behalf of Preca, and we have no objections to it either. So it's in their possession, and they have had a chance to review it, and they're agreeable to it. And I can answer any questions you may have.
Questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here tonight who wishes to speak to this application? Seeing none. If there are no more delegations, this formal public meeting is concluded and the application is now open to council for a motion and debate. Councillor Henry.
Happy to move, and per understanding earlier, I likely have some additional wording I should read in as well in terms of the motion, which also includes noting that that having considered all written and oral submissions from the public and stakeholders and considered the professional opinions of planning staff, council recommends that this application, that says Z1509, be approved in accordance with Section 7 of IPPW 2016-062 for the reasons specified in Section 6, conclusions. And if I get a seconder, I'll make a brief comment.
Seconded by Councillor Burke.
Isn't that going to be fun when we do that now? Thank you, Province of Ontario.
Continue.
So
No one understood a word you said.
Yep. Thank you, Province of Ontario. So what I want to say briefly about this application is 2 things. One, I want to thank staff and the applicant for working hard on getting the request back into the bounds of the Northdale Plan. I certainly really appreciate the adjustments that were made, and the Northdale Plan was well considered, and this development will be a good addition to it, particularly because with approval tonight, this completes the very first walkway connection that the Northdale Plan envisioned in the neighborhood. There are others before us that will work on our second completed and third, subject to further review and council approval at a later date. But certainly this is a first, and I want to thank you for that. That's really important. I'd note for the community at large, and I've said this many times, the Northdale Plan talked about those active transportation connections as dash lines on a map that we hoped we'd be able to get over time. Through the hard work of staff and development community working with us, we have been 100% successful in securing those connections where the dash line goes over or adjacent to those properties with people so far. This is a fantastic track record, and now I'm wearing a Dural smile, I think today. She's been happy for other items, and now I'm very happy about this. So thank you very much for the work that you've done, and I'm looking forward to seeing this progress.
Seeing any further comments? None. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Seeing none opposed, that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Councillor Henry, 2. So now, with apologies, yeah. That was what he was reading at speed. That's a speed reading. So you're sufficient that council to the clerks? So to the clerks, you're sufficient that we've read that appropriately? Thank you. Apologies to Kristen while we take a break and head to letter D. And this is a formal public meeting to consider zone change application Z-1605, general amendments to zoning bylaws 1108 and 1418. Any person who wants further notice of this application, including passage of any bylaw, should sign the appropriate register in the binder located in the rear desk of the council chambers. Will the clerk please advise council of the method given to use to give notice of the meeting and the dates notice was given?
Notice of the formal public meeting was advertised in the Waterloo Chronicle on June 30th, 2016, and mailed on July 5th, 2016 to all persons who signed in or spoke at the informal public meeting held on April 25th, 2016.
Thank you. The planner will now give a brief overview of the application, please.
Good evening, Mayor Jaworski, members of council, and the public here tonight. Tonight, staff are bringing forward general amendments to zoning bylaws 1108 and 1418 for council's consideration. At the council meeting on March 21st, council directed staff to undertake a general amendment to these zoning bylaws to consider a definition of bedroom and also to address other zoning matters. Other matters would be those that are urgent and should be addressed prior to when the new zoning bylaw is brought forward for council consideration. There has been a considerable amount of discussion in previous council meetings about the need for a new definition of bedroom. As you know, the official plan measures density on a bedroom per hectare basis, with the exception of several specific sites that have been through the rezoning process since 2012 and the Northdale neighborhood. Density across the remainder of the city is still measured on a units per hectare basis. Through the comprehensive zoning bylaw review currently underway, the bedroom per hectare approach to measuring density is expected to be introduced more broadly. The challenge that staff and the development industry have experienced to date is with the implementation of the bedroom per hectare approach in the absence of a definition of bedroom. It is difficult to determine compliance with the bylaw at the building permit review stage and enforce the true intent behind the official plan. This definition will enable the zoning bylaw to do its job, which is really to regulate minimum and maximum population density on a site-by-site basis across the city, with a level of consistency and predictability for all those involved in the housing design and development industry. We also need to know the actual bedroom count in a development because it may be related to other performance standards such as parking and amenity space. This definition you see here tonight on this slide is the result of many months of internal discussions and consideration of feedback from the public and council. It is consistent with and compatible with other definitions and requirements of bedrooms we use at the city. It is most consistent with the definition of bedroom given in the city's official plan. It takes a deductive approach to defining a bedroom. So it says what a bedroom is not in order to arrive at what a bedroom is. It also layers in language from the Ontario Building Code, which requires a bedroom to have a certain size and have a window or other source of direct natural sunlight. By the use of the word habitable, that you see before room, it excludes rooms that are unfinished or otherwise unsuitable as living space. Staff are also proposing that the general residence zone and general residence 1 zone and general residence 2 zones be added to the definition of low-rise residential area. It was a previous staff oversight that these zones were not included when the definition was created back in 2005. This will give extra protection to the lands in these zones, as there are landscape buffer requirements and more restrictive setbacks that apply to new commercial, industrial, and high-density development where they abut a low-rise residential area. Staff are also proposing to expand on the current provision related to municipal servicing and add several provisions to address development on private services. The current provision is given here on this slide and speaks only to apartments, triplexes, semis, and duplexes, and only requires services to be available prior to permit issuance. So staff are recommending this be replaced with new provisions which stipulate private septic and water systems are prohibited in Waterloo, just to be clear. All buildings, so not just residential, but also commercial, industrial, institutional, cannot be used unless municipal services are available and adequate in both design and capacity to service the building, and that the building is connected to these services. These provisions will ensure the chief building official has sufficient authority to refuse to issue a building permit where municipal services are not available or adequate in design or capacity for the proposed use of the lands, or where the building is not properly connected. Additional provisions will clarify the exceptions to where a development may have private services. So I would draw your attention to the last bullet, being that a building on private services may be enlarged or altered, but a private system cannot be upgraded or expanded under any circumstances. So basically, a building that is currently on private system, whether it be a well or septic, can enlarge or expand, but they are not permitted to do so, which requires the further expansion of those private services. We're also recommending modifications to 8.19.7, which deals with the status of buildings after land has been taken by the city or region for something like a road widening. So in terms of their lot area, lot frontage, side yard, rear yard, and coverage. So this current provision doesn't reference a lot, and it should, so we've added that in. And it doesn't really cover all of the areas in which the lot or building may become non-conforming. So this is, the revised red language is included to cover off everything. So includes things like parking, density, building height, landscaped area. And it says that after land is taken, the building or lot would be deemed legally conforming with respect to these performance standards. Lastly, staff have become aware that the convenience commercial zone is lacking a side yard setback requirement. Again, this is an error, so staff are proposing a side yard setback of 1.5 meters, which is standard for most commercial zones. And where it abuts a residential zone, we would propose that it's increased to 5 meters. So staff are recommending council support the staff report before you tonight and approve the proposed general amendments to zoning bylaws 1108 and 1418.
I have a point of order, Mayor.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
To the clerk, I have a point of order. I'm confused. So we're talking about the zone change application on page 153, and she's talking about the amendments, and they seem to have flown together, and I don't understand that. So what are we doing?
No, that's correct. We did, the chair did advise that we would be switching those applications, doing general amendments first.
Understood.
Yeah, just for, because it feeds into the next one. So, yeah. Good. Okay. Questions from Council? I see Councilor Freeman's up, and then Councilor Whaley.
Just for clarity, I want to make sure I totally understand the septic system. In my ward, as you probably know, there's houses on Country Square, and there's houses on the end of Colonial Acres for which there's no municipal services. And so I just want to make sure that these general amendments aren't going to limit their ability on their properties. They have no option.
It looks like Joel wants to speak to it. I can say that we had those areas in mind when we were drafting the provisions, so Joel can speak to them a little more detail.
Through you, Mayor Jaworski, to Councilor Freeman. The intent of the regulations that we've drafted is to recognize areas such as your ward. The intention is, and we've crafted language to allow, if someone wants to build a sunroom or an expansion to their existing home, that they're allowed to do that under the zoning bylaw on private services. Where we've kind of drawn the line is that if the development was so large that it required upgrading to those septic systems or water systems, then that would not be permitted. So they have to stay within the limits of their current designs of their existing systems, but they are allowed to add some level of intensification on their property subject to the zoning bylaw and staying within the limits of their existing servicing capacity.
Go ahead.
Is there an appeal process for that? Because I just want to make sure that there are people in my ward who have literally bought houses where they've torn them down. So the houses existed on a septic bed. They've torn down the house and replaced it with an entirely new, much more efficient home. But they in all likelihood, while they were doing that work, replaced the septic bed and or resized it to fit the new home that they were building. So I'm really concerned about the ability of people's properties to have the flexibility to do with them as they intended, because they're real estate.
Through your, Mayor Jaworski, to Councilor Freeman, in such instances, they would be required to obtain zoning relief through a process, either a minor zoning bylaw amendment or an application to the Committee of Adjustment, depending on what they were looking to do.
Please go ahead.
I just want to be clear, because a minor zoning amendment would still be a $20,000 fee. Is that right?
Currently, the application is around $10,000 for a minor application.
Yeah.
So it would more likely, in most cases, depending on the severity, be a minor variance application. We looked at this issue and we were trying to determine language from a zoning perspective that would deal with such issues, and it's extremely difficult to do that in zoning. So this was the best we could do within the timeframes that we had. It's certainly something we could look at in more detail through the comprehensive zoning bylaw, try and figure out ways to provide that, or specifically identify areas such as within your ward and provide a site-specific bylaw that allows greater flexibility. That's something else that we could do through the comprehensive bylaw review.
Does this piece of this general amendment have to be done tonight? Because I don't recall this in the informal meeting. I recall all the information about the bedrooms and so on. I don't know whether I missed an informal meeting, but I just, the implications for this are quite large, because I know for a fact that a lot of the homes on Country Square, for example, are really small family houses, and it is the intention of people to buy them. It's some of the last remaining estate-sized lots that we have in Waterloo, and people are buying those homes with the intention to remove them and entirely rebuild and resize their septic beds. And I'm not comfortable with this. There's a fairness principle here that's missing for me. There's no sewers in the ground, and and we charge them for stormwater too, by the way, and there's no stormwater in the ground.
Laura, can you put that slide back up, just of the septic? And then, I don't know if Mr. Cotter, you were going to have further information on that.
Through you, Mayor Jaworski, it's well within council's purview to remove this particular general amendment from the list of general amendments that are before council. So you can remove this, and it's something that we would then deal with through the comprehensive zoning bylaw. This particular matter was an issue that was directed to us by legal counsel, by the Legal Services Division, given some of the challenges that they had received more recently, not related to residential development, but to other forms of development and some of the limitations under the building code. So it was really out of legal services that we're advancing this request for zoning relief. But if council's not comfortable with this regulation, you're certainly welcome to remove it from the list of general amendments, and we'll look at it through the comprehensive zoning bylaw in more detail, for sure.
Why don't we do that, Councillor Freeman?
Yeah, I would feel more comfortable with that tonight, because I don't really want to hold up the other amendments. And the other piece is I think it will be very helpful to set our minds to what the process is for seeking some kind of amendment or alteration to the property around these pieces, in particular related to residential. So for me, I'd like to see those elements before I'd be comfortable with that.
And I would similarly like to see further information just on septic systems and which ones are impacted, and some of the questions that Councillor Freeman raised here. Go ahead, Mr. Cotter.
Through you, Mayor Jaworski, absolutely we can investigate this further and try and, again, to refine the regulations to make sure that we're not impacting legitimate properties from being used per their plan function. The one thing I will note to the clerk in this case is that we do have the bylaw to implement these general amendments listed for council as well. So if that bylaw is passed, it should be passed with a proviso that this particular amendment is removed.
Okay, thank you. Further questions at this time? Seeing none. Is there anyone, there's no, are you okay? Yeah, we're good. I have no registered delegations, but I see somebody who might want to speak. Welcome. Please come on up. You'll have 5 minutes. State your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, this is Stephen Herzog from Waterloo. I have what may be a very naive question, but what is the difficulty with septic systems, and are there different, my concern may be that it may be preventing people from putting in an improved system. I don't know much about this at all, but there maybe are anaerobic and aerobic systems, and people might want to upgrade to something that's actually better for the environment. And I'm also concerned that some people might wish to put in a very low water use experimental sort of system, and we might be preventing that. And so is the province requiring the city to prohibit septic systems? And my other concern is that it may put pressure on the city to extend the sewers to outlying areas, and it might end up costing the city millions of dollars when it might make more sense for people in outlying areas to be able to upgrade their system a little bit and expand it. Just very naive questions. Well,
I think that's part of what we'd like to find out more at the appropriate time as well. Questions for the delegate, or information, Councillor Freeman?
I'm happy to ask staff to take Mr. Herzog's questions away, and maybe they can be included in the next report. I will be forthright to say I do understand that our current city does not allow septic beds to be installed where city services exist to be connected. Because the impact to the groundwater system can be significant from septic beds, and in particular, they change the hydraulic, the water table balance. So, and that can be important in a municipality, especially one on wells as their water. So I do understand that, and I think that the extent of septic beds probably isn't all that well known necessarily by other members of council. So in my ward, there's entire sections of hillside, and in Colonial Acres, everything that is north of Castlefield, all the way out to Bridge, is all on septic. And it's just that because a lot of those homes are aging, I just don't want to put a provision into the bylaw right now that would limit someone's ability to actually dismantle that house and build something more durable, more efficient, and so on, and in doing so, upgrade and resize their septic bed. So that helps. If it helps me to clarify my concern, and then all of Country Square is also on a septic system.
Thank you. Further questions for the delegate? Seeing none, thank you. And I think Councillor Freeman made a good point about staff taking the concerns heard or the questions held here tonight for future reference in handling this the septic issue. Thank you for speaking out. Anyone else here wish to speak tonight? Seeing none. If there are no more delegations, this formal public meeting is concluded. The application is now open to council for a motion and debate. Somebody like to move or something? Councillor Henry?
I'll need some help, but I'd be happy to move the recommendation as printed, except for recommendation number 3 in the report, which is the relevant, very long set of details around septic. And I understand per provincial new regulation, there's something we should read that's now a little bit more confusing for having done that, and I would appreciate Mr. Cotter's help on wording I should speak to that effect.
Just say as amended.
Yes.
At the end of it.
Having considered B as amended.
Yeah, we could do that, but I will look for Mr. Cotter's help. Of this one? Yeah. All right. So, and just so people in the audience are aware, province brought in regulations that took effect July 1st. We have to add these random extra words to our resolution. They're not random, of course, but they are words. So having considered all written and oral submissions from the public and stakeholders and considered the professional opinions of planning staff, council approves general amendments to zoning bylaws 1108 and 1418 in accordance with section 4 recommendations of IPPW 2016-076 on the basis that the general amendments represent good, as amended, on the basis that the general amendments represent good planning.
Excellent. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Freeman. Discussion? Go ahead.
I really appreciate that we've taken fast action on doing the best we can do on dealing with the bedroom definition ambiguity concerns that I think council's expressed. We know this does not solve all of our problems, but gosh, it gets us as close as we, I think, can possibly get. And we've received some good input from the public that planning staff has taken into consideration. And as well, I appreciate how staff has made some timely amendments to issues that we'd noted were not, say, properly noted. Council's direction in the past may not have properly contained all of the items it intended to have contained, and these are being addressed here. And I think council, after last month, very much appreciates that.
Excellent. Thank you. Good comments. Seeing no further comments, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That's all of us. Thank you. Oh. Anything further? Oh, I thought you looked at me. Okay. Back to C. This is a formal public meeting to consider zone change application Z-15-09, 131 and 133 University Avenue West, 131 University Inc. Any persons who want further notice of this application, including passage of any bylaw, should sign the appropriate register in the binder located at the back of the rear council chambers. Will clerk please advise council of the method used to give notice of the meeting and the dates notice was given?
Notice of the formal public meeting was advertised in the Waterloo Chronicle on June 30th, 2016, and mailed on July 5th, 2016, to all persons who signed in or spoke at the informal public meeting held on September 14th, 2015, the first formal public meeting held on December 7th, 2015, the second formal public meeting held on March 21st, 2016, and to all persons who requested further notice.
The planner will now provide a brief overview of the application, please. Welcome back.
Again, good evening, Mayor Jaworski, members of council, and the public here tonight. I'm going to give a very brief presentation for zone change application Z1509 and staff's recommendations. Just to refresh your memories, this is the subject site. It's comprised of 2 lots located directly between University of Waterloo and Wilfrid Laurier campuses on University Avenue West. It's on the south side of the street, across from the Northdale neighborhood and a commercial plaza. This is a street view of the site and the existing buildings, which are proposed to be demolished to make way for a new development. You can see the site is surrounded by apartment buildings, so 16 stories, 11 stories, and 4 stories. The lands are currently zoned multiple residence 25 stories and are designated high-density residential in the city's official plan. The applicant is proposing a 16-story apartment building containing 92 one-bedroom units served by 24 parking spaces. So at the last formal public meeting, council deferred a decision on this application until staff had brought forward a new definition of bedroom through a general amendment to the city's zoning bylaws, which was something we just dealt with several minutes ago, and council did approve that definition. So for consistency, staff are recommending that same definition apply to these lands through the site-specific zoning bylaw. So tonight, staff are recommending that council approve zone change application Z1509 and the applicant's request to introduce the following site-specific zoning bylaws to facilitate their proposed redevelopment. So new measure of density being a maximum of 750 bedrooms per hectare, new definition of bedroom consistent with the one introduced through general amendment tonight, a new parking rate of 0.2 spaces per bedroom and 0.05 visitor spaces per bedroom, consistent with what is proposed, what is in place in the Northdale neighborhood. Relief from the surface parking requirement, a minimum rear yard of 6.4 meters, an easterly side yard of 2.2 meters, and a combined 9 meters between the 2 side yards, and a step back requirement for the tower portion of the building of 3 meters above the 5th story facing the street. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions? Councillor Whaley?
Thank you for the information. Since March 21st, I understand the original 4 plans that were presented to Council then at that meeting have been modified to remove the proposed dens. How did we verify that that was done?
Through you, Mayor Jaworski, it will be verified at the building permit review stage as to the number of bedrooms that this development does contain. So at this point, we know that they are requesting permissions to build up to a maximum of 92 bedrooms, and the number of bedrooms would be verified at that stage. At this point, we don't have the final detailed floor plans to review. That's done after site plan approval and once a building permit is submitted to the city.
So essentially, we just have a leap of faith that the process is going to take care of this down the road.
It's much like a side yard setback. It's something that we verify through our zoning review, through the building permit review process.
So the next section after the fact that we're told that the dens were removed is that the planning process cannot control whether the dens are included in the final building plan permits. So how do we? I'm uncertain how we get to the promise that there won't be any dens or there won't be any other rooms that could be used for bedrooms, and I'm just not certain how there's the burden of proof seems to rely on the city doing something, but I'm not sure what that is. Perhaps Mr. Kaminsky would have some insights on that.
can certainly answer that, but I think what Laura had indicated was that with the new definition of bedroom, the fact that someone disguises a bedroom as a den no longer becomes an issue. The zoning regulation is applicable law, and because of the definition now allows us to interpret that when we do the plan review, we can ensure that is enforced.
Further questions? Seeing none, thank you. And next up is Kristen, I believe. When I was getting registered delegations to come forward, next up is Kristen Bairstale. Welcome back.
Hello again. GSP Group represents Pre-Good Development with respect to the proposed development. We've had a chance to review the staff report, and we are generally in support of it. There has been some back and forth over the past few weeks with staff with regards to the bedroom definition, and we're confident that the definition as proposed by way of the general bylaw amendment, as well as that's being proposed site-specific, is something that is agreeable to our parties and something that can be worked around and into when we have to do the site plan details as well as building permit drawings. And I can answer any additional questions you may have with respect to the proposed development.
Thank you for your concise presentations tonight. Councillor Whaley.
We all do appreciate it. With respect to the taking out the bedrooms, taking out the dens, that's going to make a significant interior change to the building, right? But I didn't see it reflected on the exterior. The exterior of the building seems to have changed, not at all. But you have some massive interior changes to make to accommodate taking the dens out. Could you explain how that's going to work?
Through you, Mayor. The units themselves weren't particularly large units, so the dens have been removed. The bedrooms will be slightly enlarged. The one bedrooms will be slightly enlarged, and then the common amenity area or the living room will be slightly enlarged. So any of the partitions or the dividing walls will be removed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Further questions for the delegate? Seeing none. Oh, Councillor Henry.
Thank you very much, Mayor, and thank you, Kristen, for being here and for your very brief presentation at the end of a long night. Wondering if you could comment on the future intention of the ground floor space that's available in the building. I understand from staff it's about 90 meters on the ground. Background to my question, we've seen a number of C of A applications over the last few years trying to convert amenity space for the building into commercial uses for everybody, and our comprehensive zoning process is advancing ways to deal with the concerns we have with that. So with that as background, I'm wondering if you can speak to the intention the applicant has around those spaces.
Through you, Mayor, it's not the intent to have any kind of commercial space provided on the ground floor of this building. University Avenue, while it does serve pedestrian connections to both universities, I would suggest that it's probably not as pedestrian friendly or pedestrian oriented as some of the side streets like Sunview, where you've got more safer pedestrian movement, more frequent pedestrian movement that would be agreeable or would appeal to those types of commercial uses. I think by and large University Avenue is still vehicular focused with some pedestrian and then some rail. So for that reason alone, I don't think it has the draw for commercial uses, and even the 90 square meters is not, even if there was a conversion or contemplation of conversion, that's not a significant amount of space to put a retail use in. It would completely eliminate any common areas on the ground floor.
And I'd imagine that may be problematic to residents. So I appreciate hearing your comments around University Avenue in relation to auto orientation for these uses.
Any further questions? Seeing no further questions for the delegation, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here tonight who wishes to speak to this application? Seeing none. If there are no more delegations, this formal public meeting is concluded and the application is now open to council for a motion and debate. Oh, look, Councillor Henry.
Yeah, it's my kind of night, I guess. I'd be happy to move the recommendations with an additional wording as, again, now required by the province. That wording being, having considered all written and oral submissions from the public and stakeholders and considered the professional opinions of planning staff, council approves zoning bylaw amendment Z-15-09 in accordance with section 5 of IPPW 2015-108.2 for the reasons specified in section 4 of the report. If I get a seconder, I'll have comments.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Burke.
So I thank staff for all the work on this. Third formal public meeting, I guess third time's the charm. Not all of those were about us. Some of them were about the applicant, so that's why we're here. I know a question I asked very early on, I think at the informal stage, was for an applicant in a high-density zone abutting the Northdale lands, but not in Northdale, who was asking for Northdale parking requirements, how did their application relate to all of the other performance standards that we expect out of Northdale? That if you want a piece, we should look at the whole. And I appreciate that staff took the time to build that chart into the final report, and I think a review of that shows that by and large there's large conformance with the performance expectations that we had across the street. So that eases my mind somewhat on this. Councillor Whaley asked other very good questions and got, I think, the best response we can give in these matters, so I won't repeat his comments. So thanks to all for all the back and forth and work on this file.
Thank you. Any further question or comments from council? Councillor Whaley.
It's been a long process, and I appreciate all the good work that's gone into all these new definitions and kind of shading in some of the colors in the corners on some of these issues. I think it's going to create a lot more clarity for council, for staff, and for the developing community. Well done.
Thank you. Seeing no further comments, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Seeing none opposed, that's carried. Excellent. And, for July, thank you very much to Planning Group for a lot of heavy lifting coming out this summer. Thank you very much. Good work, Ralph. Next up, we have no correspondence, consideration, nothing, new business. New business? Anything under there, folks? I have two items.
Great job at Uptown Jazz Festival. It was a huge success. Thanks for everybody who supported it.
Absolutely, it was fantastic. And the only other item I had under other business is we have great news with the Jazz Festival, but we have some not so great news, don't we, Keshwar? Aren't we losing somebody? Somebody very special to us.
Through you, Mayor Jaworski, yes, this is the last week for our Communications and Marketing Director, Megan Harris. So we wish her the very best as she starts on her new ventures in British Columbia. She will definitely be missed. As you all know, she has been very instrumental in shaping the Communications and Marketing Division, setting the tone for social media. Even the public consultation that we did in the budget process last year was a significant effort, and it was the innovation and creativity of Megan and her team that brought all those things to the forefront. And she's even made our annual financial reports look good. So if you can make our financial reports look understandable and good, it's a big credit to Megan. She has done a lot, and so we wanted to all wish her the very best, and I guess it's an opportunity for council too. Just to express any words of appreciation that you might have. She's done a lot in shaping our image, our brand, and we will certainly miss her.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you very much, Megan. You have a microphone there if you want to say anything. You're okay? You're going to break. Okay. We won't break you. Enactment of bylaws, and just to Mr. Cotter's point, do we have to adjust D, I think? Modify regulations regarding municipal...
Chair, that's correct. We'll delete the modify regulations relating to municipal and private services. So that'll be deleted from the bylaw.
Okay, cool. Anyone want to move all the bylaws? Councillor Durrell, Councillor Henry. Any discussion? All those in favor? That's all of us. And I feel like there should be more, but there isn't. Councillor Durrell. Anybody else want to adjourn? Councillor Burke, all those in favor? We're all in favor. Thank you.